Forget legends for a moment, and forget comfort. What if the ancient world was not as limited as we assume? Buried beneath layers of soil and certainty are structures that feel calculated, not primitive, angles too exact, stones placed with intention that borders on intelligence we struggle to explain. These discoveries don't shout answers, they provoke doubt. Were these builders experimenting, observing, or solving problems we no longer recognize? As evidence quietly accumulates, one question grows louder. Are we misreading our own origins? Let's examine the sites forcing us to rethink everything we thought we knew. Rising quietly from the dry earth of northern Sudan, the Kerma Deffufa does not announce itself with grandeur. It emerges instead as a mass, thick, earthen, deliberate, its weathered mud brick walls absorbing the desert light rather than reflecting it. From a distance, it appears almost geological, like a natural formation shaped by wind and time. But up close, its geometry reveals intention. This is architecture, not accident. And it has been standing here, overlooking the Nile's ancient course, for more than 4,000 years. The Deffufa is the most prominent surviving structure of the Kingdom of Kerma, one of Africa's earliest and least understood civilizations, flourishing roughly between 2,500 and 1,500 BCE. Built entirely of sun-dried mud brick, the structure once stood taller than it does today, its walls reinforced and reshaped across generations. Archaeologists generally describe it as a ceremonial or religious building, possibly a temple, situated at the heart of a complex urban center. Surrounding it were homes, workshops, burial grounds, and evidence of a society that was organized, wealthy, and deeply connected to the Nile. Inside the Deffufa, narrow stairways and small chambers wind through thick walls. The layout is inward-looking, almost secretive. There are no grand entrances, no obvious inscriptions explaining its purpose. Unlike the stone monuments of Egypt to the north, Kerma left few written records behind. What remains are materials, alignments, and spatial choices, clues without captions. This silence is part of what makes the Deffufa so compelling. It resists easy interpretation. Mainstream archaeology places the structure firmly within a ritual context. Animal bones, ash layers, and altars found nearby suggest ceremonial activity, possibly linked to state religion or elite authority. The elevated platform may have been designed to separate sacred space from the everyday world below. From this view, the Deffufa reflects a society expressing power and belief through controlled space, height, and permanence. Mud brick standing in for stone, symbolism replacing spectacle. Yet questions linger. The precision of the structure's construction, especially given its age and materials, has led some researchers to pause. The walls are remarkably thick and stable, engineered to withstand centuries of erosion. Certain internal alignments appear deliberate, though their purpose remains unclear. Was the building oriented toward celestial events? Did it play a role in seasonal rituals tied to the flooding of the Nile, or to cycles now forgotten? More speculative theories drift further from consensus. Some suggest the Deffufa functioned not only as a temple, but as a kind of observational structure, a place where sound, shadow, or movement held symbolic meaning beyond ritual. Others wonder whether Kerma possessed architectural knowledge inherited from even earlier cultures in the region, now erased by time and climate. These ideas sit at the edges of evidence, neither proven nor entirely dismissible, sustained by gaps in the archaeological record rather than concrete data. What complicates the mystery further is Kerma's relationship with Egypt. Long portrayed as a peripheral culture influenced by its northern neighbor, Kerma is now understood to have been a powerful rival, at times dominating parts of Upper Egypt itself. The Deffufa, then, may not be a lesser echo of Egyptian temples, but an expression of an independent worldview, built according to principles we no longer fully grasp. Standing before the Deffufa today, there is a sense of restraint in what it reveals. It does not overwhelm. It waits. Each layer of mud brick represents a choice made by people whose voices are gone, but whose structure remains. The longer it is studied, the clearer it becomes that the Deffufa is not an anomaly. It is a reminder of how much of human history still lies outside familiar narratives. And so the questions remain, embedded in earth and shadow. What was truly understood here, on this stretch of the Nile, long before history was written down? And what else, still buried, might one day change how we see the ancient world? As the sun dips low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain, we leave behind the silent grandeur of Kerma Deffufa and journey northward, tracing the contours of a landscape that has whispered its secrets for millennia. There, perched atop a gently sloping ridge overlooking the verdant plains below, lies Talatí de Dalt, an archaeological site whose presence is both commanding and enigmatic. Unlike the monumental tombs and temples of other ancient civilizations, Talatí de Dalt does not announce itself with overwhelming grandeur. Instead, it waits quietly, its stone foundations and scattered ruins hinting at stories long buried beneath centuries of earth and time. Talatí de Dalt is situated in the Balearic Islands, a region that seems, at first glance, distant from the power centers of the Mediterranean. Yet within its modest confines, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of a society that thrived during the Bronze Age. People who left behind not only everyday artifacts, such as pottery shards and tools, but also structures whose purpose and sophistication defy simple categorization. Massive stone constructions, known locally as talayots, rise from the landscape like sentinels from another age. Their precise arrangement and enduring stability suggest a deliberate design, one that continues to challenge our understanding of the engineering capabilities of these early communities. Walking through the site, one cannot help but notice the intricate interplay of geometry and orientation. Some talayots align with the rising sun at particular times of the year. Others form clusters that appear almost ritualistic, yet their full significance remains elusive. Did these alignments serve a practical purpose, perhaps linked to agriculture or timekeeping? Or were they symbolic, serving as spiritual or communal markers that connected the people to the rhythms of the cosmos? The stones themselves, weathered by wind and centuries of rain, bear silent witness to intentions we can only speculate upon. Excavations have revealed chambers within several talayots, often containing remnants of domestic life alongside ceremonial artifacts. These spaces suggest a duality of function, places of daily activity intertwined with zones of ritual significance. Yet, despite careful study, much about Talatí de Dalt resists easy explanation. Unlike the more extensively documented civilizations of the Mediterranean, written records are absent here. There are no inscriptions to illuminate the minds of those who built and inhabited these structures. Instead, we rely on the material evidence, and even this offers only partial insight. Each stone seems to pose a question. Why was this placed here, and how did its creators accomplish such precision with the tools available to them? Adding to the mystery are the unexplained anomalies discovered in recent decades. Some of the stones used in construction are significantly heavier than what would be expected for a community presumed to lack advanced machinery. Others display cuts and shapes that suggest a level of craftsmanship far beyond what is typically attributed to Bronze Age societies in this region. How did these people move and shape these massive stones with such accuracy? And what was the guiding principle behind their placement? Modern engineers and archaeologists have experimented with various theories, from simple levers and ramps to more intricate methods that remain speculative, yet no definitive answer has emerged. Talatí de Dalt also raises questions about the social and cultural organization of its inhabitants. The scale and precision of the constructions imply coordination, planning, and a shared knowledge that would have required a complex societal structure. Who were the leaders, and what roles did individuals play in this community? Were these structures built over generations, each new layer of stone adding to a collective vision? Or were they the work of a single, extraordinary generation, capable of feats we struggle to replicate even today? Each hypothesis offers tantalizing possibilities, yet each also reminds us of how much remains shrouded in mystery. Beyond the stones themselves, the site is surrounded by a landscape that seems carefully chosen, if not sacred. Hills and valleys frame the talayots in ways that suggest a profound understanding of sightlines and spatial relationships. Could these placements have been intended to communicate with neighboring settlements or to mark territorial boundaries? Some researchers propose connections with distant Mediterranean cultures, noting similarities in construction techniques or ritual practices. Others suggest that Talatí de Dalt represents a unique evolution of human ingenuity, an isolated experiment in architecture and social organization that left its mark quietly, waiting for the right eyes to rediscover it. As we move through the ruins, the air carries a sense of stillness, almost reverence. It is easy to imagine the people who once walked these paths, carrying stones, performing rituals, observing the changing seasons. And yet, their voices are silent. Every carefully placed block, every chamber and corridor, is a question without an answer. What inspired these constructions? What did they hope to achieve, to communicate, or to protect? And perhaps most hauntingly, what remains hidden beneath the soil, waiting to reveal another layer of this ancient puzzle? Talatí de Dalt challenges us not only to reconsider the limits of Bronze Age society, but also to embrace the unknown. Here, the line between history and mystery blurs, and the more we learn, the more we are confronted with questions that refuse closure. Standing amid the weathered stones, one cannot help but wonder, are we glimpsing a civilization ahead of its time, or merely fragments of human ingenuity that, like echoes, persist long after their makers have vanished? The taliots offer no answers, only an invitation to look closer, to imagine, and to keep searching, for the story of Talatí de Dalt is far from complete. Leaving behind the commanding ridge lines of Talatí de Dalt, our journey continues across the rugged, wind-swept landscapes of Menorca. The sea's distant horizon glimmers under the soft afternoon light, and the air carries the scent of salt and earth, a reminder of the island's enduring isolation. It is here, amidst fields that have long been tilled and pastures that have long been grazed, that we encounter one of the most remarkable and mysterious structures of the prehistoric Mediterranean, the Naveta des Tudons. At first glance, it appears deceptively simple, a stone building resembling an overturned ship, its curved walls weathered but unwavering. But its story and the questions it poses run far deeper than its outward form. Naveta des Tudons rises from the ground with a quiet, immutable presence, constructed from massive blocks of local limestone, carefully fitted without the use of mortar. Its architecture is unique to the Balearic Islands, yet it has endured for over 3 millennia, a silent testament to the skill and vision of its creators. Archaeologists date the structure to around 1000 BCE, placing it firmly in the Bronze Age, yet its purpose and the sophistication of its construction continue to provoke debate. Unlike the talayots of Talatí de Dalt, whose use may have encompassed both domestic and ceremonial functions, the Naveta is widely understood to have served as a collective tomb, a place where the dead were interred with care and ritual. Yet even this seemingly straightforward explanation leaves room for mystery. Entering the space or imagining it as it might have appeared to those who built it, one is struck by the precision of the stonework. The stones are not simply stacked, they are shaped and aligned to create a stable, enduring chamber. The inner walls curve gently toward a flat, vaulted ceiling, forming a long, narrow interior that has preserved its structure despite centuries of exposure to wind and rain. How did Bronze Age builders, with only simple tools, manage to shape and place these massive stones with such accuracy? What principles guided their construction, and what knowledge might have been lost along with the people themselves? The very form of the Naveta suggests intention and foresight, an understanding of balance and endurance that seems to transcend its time. Excavations of Naveta des Tudons have revealed human remains, pottery, and small personal objects, providing glimpses into the lives and deaths of its occupants. Carbon dating indicates repeated use over several generations, hinting at a sustained cultural significance. Yet even as these findings shed light on aspects of the past, they simultaneously raise new questions. Why choose such a singular architectural design for a burial site? Why is this form found so exclusively in Minorca, with only rare analogues elsewhere in the Mediterranean? Some scholars suggest the Naveta may have served not only as a tomb, but also as a symbol of identity and social cohesion, a way to anchor a community in a harsh and changing landscape. But the precise meanings, the ceremonies performed within its walls, remain beyond our reach. Adding to the enigma are elements that hint at knowledge or practices lost to time. Some researchers note that the orientation of the Naveta may correspond with solar or celestial events, a feature echoed in other megalithic sites across Europe. Could the builders have been marking solstices or equinoxes, linking the dead with the cycles of the heavens? Others point to the construction techniques themselves, the corbelled vault, the careful fitting of enormous stones, the enduring stability, as evidence of engineering skill that remains astonishing even by modern standards. Were these techniques developed independently, through trial and observation, or did they draw upon traditions and knowledge that have since disappeared? Beyond the physical structure, the Naveta sits within a landscape that seems deliberately chosen. Rolling hills stretch into the distance, punctuated by smaller stone features that suggest a broader network of ritual or communal spaces. What relationship might these sites have shared? And how did they integrate with the lives of those who moved among them? Some researchers propose that the placement of Navetas like des Tudons reflects an understanding of topography and visibility, creating markers that would be seen from afar, perhaps serving as territorial symbols or guides for travelers. Others speculate that such sites might have functioned as centers for ceremonies, gatherings, or rites of passage where the living interacted with the memory of the dead in ways that we can only imagine. Even in the absence of written records, the Naveta des Tudons communicates a profound sense of intention and purpose. The builder's choices, shape, placement, orientation, speak of a culture attuned not only to practical needs, but also to deeper, perhaps spiritual imperatives. Yet, as we trace our fingers over the worn stones in imagination, or stand quietly before the enduring edifice, we are reminded of the limits of our understanding. For every artifact uncovered, every stone measured and catalogued, more questions arise than answers. How did this knowledge arise? How widespread was it? And what was lost when the culture that created the Navetas vanished from history? In contemplating Naveta des Tudons, one begins to sense a dialogue across the ages, an exchange between the living and the dead, between the past and those who study it today. It is a site that demands patience, observation, and reflection, encouraging us to slow our gaze and consider the many possibilities of human ingenuity and belief. Could the Navetas have been multifunctional, serving as tombs, observatories, and communal spaces all at once? Or is their mystery more profound, hinting at a worldview, a relationship with life and death that we cannot fully grasp? The stones themselves, weathered yet steadfast, seem to resist definitive answers, leaving space for imagination, inquiry, and wonder. As we step back and survey the full silhouette of Naveta des Tudons against the shifting light of day, it becomes clear that this is a place where history and mystery intersect. Every stone, every curve of its form, is an invitation to look closer, to question assumptions, and to recognize the sophistication and depth of a society long gone. And yet, even as we catalog and analyze, the Naveta retains a quiet defiance. It will not surrender its secrets easily. What remains hidden within its chambers? What stories of life, death, and belief have yet to be unearthed? As with Talatí de Dalt, the answers are elusive and the mystery endures, waiting for the next generation of explorers to approach with curiosity, patience, and respect. As we leave the wind-swept fields of Minorca behind, where the Naveta des Tudons rises silently under the sun, our journey brings us across the sea to a very different landscape, yet one that echoes with the same sense of human ingenuity and mystery. Rolling green hills stretch across County Carlow in Ireland, punctuated by the occasional stand of oak or ash, and there, partially hidden amidst low shrubs and pastures, stands one of Europe's most enigmatic and enduring megaliths, the Brownshill Dolmen. From a distance, it appears almost impossibly balanced, a massive capstone, estimated to weigh over 100 tons, resting delicately atop a cluster of upright stones. Its sheer scale and apparent defiance of gravity immediately command attention, hinting at knowledge and effort far beyond what we might expect from prehistoric builders. The dolmen, sometimes referred to as a portal tomb, is believed to date back to the Neolithic period, around 4000 to 3000 BCE. Its enormous capstone, longer than a small bus, stretches across two upright stones, forming a chamber below that is just large enough to contain human remains and ritual offerings. Archaeologists have excavated traces of cremated bones, pottery shards, and stone tools, confirming its function as a burial site. Yet, as with Talatí de Dalt and Naveta des Tudons, these findings offer only partial insight. The questions arise as naturally as the morning mist. How was such a massive stone moved into place? What motivated these early communities to construct monuments of this scale and precision? And what did these structures signify to the people who built them beyond their function as tombs? Approaching the dolmen, one is struck by the sense of permanence and intention. Unlike the talayots of Minorca, which are integrated into settlements, or the Navetas, which sit subtly within the landscape, Brownshill Dolmen asserts itself with a monumental presence. The capstone's weight seems almost impossible to support, yet it has remained stable for over 5,000 years, enduring wind, rain, and the slow creep of time. Some researchers speculate that its builders may have understood principles of leverage and balance far earlier than previously assumed, employing earthen ramps, ropes, and sheer communal effort. Others wonder whether techniques now lost to history, methods perhaps ritualized or secret, played a role, hinting at knowledge that has no modern equivalent. The location of the dolmen is itself intriguing. Perched on a gentle rise overlooking the surrounding fields, it would have been visible from afar, a landmark in a prehistoric landscape otherwise devoid of permanent structures. Did its placement serve a practical purpose, guiding travelers or marking territorial boundaries? Or did it carry a spiritual significance, a link between the living and the dead, or even between humans and the cosmos? Observers have noted alignments that hint at solar or lunar events, suggesting that, like the builders of Talatí de Dalt and Naveta des Tudons, these Neolithic communities may have been attuned to celestial rhythms, weaving them into the fabric of their monuments. Inside the chamber, the space is intimate, a deliberate contrast to the overwhelming exterior. It evokes a sense of enclosure, of sanctuary. One can imagine small groups of people gathering here, performing rites and ceremonies, speaking softly in the language of a distant past. Yet, as with all sites of this age, the precise rituals and meanings remain speculative. Some scholars propose that dolmens were not only tombs, but also focal points for ancestor worship, sites where the dead continued to influence the living community. Others suggest that they might have marked sacred territories, served as symbolic representations of the cosmos, or functioned as centers of social cohesion. The absence of written records leaves room for interpretation, allowing the stones themselves to tell a story that is incomplete, tantalizingly out of reach. The engineering of Brownshill Dolmen continues to captivate experts. The capstone's placement demonstrates an understanding of weight distribution and stability that is remarkable for its time. Modern engineers have recreated attempts to lift and position similar stones using only Neolithic technology, yet the process remains daunting, requiring enormous coordination and ingenuity. Could there have been techniques that are now forgotten, passed down orally through generations, or perhaps inspired by observational knowledge of natural rock formations? The precision of the dolmen, coupled with its enduring stability, suggests a level of sophistication that challenges our assumptions about prehistoric societies and their capabilities. Beyond the stones themselves, the dolmen exists within a landscape rich with other megalithic features: burial mounds, standing stones, and smaller dolmens. Together, they suggest a network of sites, a cultural landscape that was both practical and symbolic. How were these sites interconnected? Did they serve as markers of migration routes, territorial boundaries, or centers of communal ritual? And what does their continued survival tell us about the priorities and beliefs of these ancient communities, who invested immense labor in structures that would outlast their own lifetimes? Standing before Brownshill Dolmen, it is impossible not to feel a profound connection across time. The stone seems almost alive with memory, a sentinel that has observed millennia pass quietly by. Like Talatí de Dalt and Naveta des Tudons, it challenges our understanding, inviting careful thought rather than simple explanation. It raises questions about human ambition, skill, and the desire to leave a mark that endures far beyond the fragile span of life. What motivated these early builders to conceive of and accomplish such feats? Were they guided purely by practical needs, or by a vision of existence that wove together the earthly and the spiritual? And what secrets remain hidden within the earth and the stone, waiting for future generations to uncover? Brownshill Dolmen, in its quiet yet commanding presence, embodies the enduring tension between knowledge and mystery. Each stone, each angle of placement, speaks of intent, capability, and a world view that we can glimpse but never fully know. As we step back and let the sunlight filter across the moss-streaked capstone, the questions persist. How did such knowledge arise in a world without written records? What stories, what rituals, what wisdom have been lost to time? And, perhaps most hauntingly, what remains just out of reach, concealed by the centuries, awaiting discovery by those who continue to seek answers in the stones themselves? As we step away from the quiet permanence of Brownshill Dolmen, leaving behind the windswept hills of Ireland and the weight of its monumental stones, our journey carries us thousands of miles across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Here, on the eastern coast of Qusray, one of the Caroline Islands in Micronesia, lies a site that is at once extraordinary and enigmatic: Leluh Stone City. Unlike the solitary dolmens of Europe or the burial-focused Navetas of Minorca, Leluh presents a sprawling urban landscape, its foundations etched in coral and basalt, hinting at a civilization of remarkable organization, engineering, and vision. From above, the city unfolds like a carefully plotted map, a lattice of streets, walls, and ceremonial centers stretching across the reef-fringed coastline. Approaching Leluh, one cannot help but be struck by its deliberate layout. Coral blocks and basalt stones, quarried from the surrounding landscape, form terraces, pyramidal structures, and rectangular platforms. These are connected by streets and causeways that channel movement across the city, seemingly designed to accommodate both ritual and daily life. Archaeologists estimate that Leluh flourished around 1250 CE, serving as the political and ceremonial center of the island, yet its sophistication far exceeds what might be expected of a remote island society. How did its inhabitants, isolated from larger continental civilizations, develop such architectural precision? What knowledge guided the construction of walls and terraces capable of enduring storms and rising tides for centuries? Walking among the ruins, or imagining their original vitality, one notices the fusion of practicality and symbolism. Many of the stone structures are engineered to manage water, directing runoff from the hills and protecting vital areas from flooding. Others appear to serve ceremonial or elite functions, their size and orientation signaling hierarchy, power, and perhaps spiritual significance. Some platforms align with astronomical phenomena, hinting that the builders, like those at Talatí de Dalt and Naveta des Tudons, may have incorporated celestial observation into urban design. Was this purely functional, an early form of urban planning informed by environment and survival, or did it carry a deeper cosmological meaning, linking daily life to celestial cycles and ancestral guidance? Leluh's scale and precision raise further questions. The sheer volume of stone, carefully carved and fitted, suggests a workforce both skilled and organized. What social structures enabled this degree of labor coordination? Some researchers propose a system of communal labor driven by hierarchical leadership, yet the specific methods remain uncertain. Unlike in Europe or the Mediterranean, where monumental stonework often aligns with religious or funerary purposes, Leluh combines administrative, residential, and ceremonial functions, implying a multifaceted culture capable of complex social planning. How was knowledge transmitted among builders, and how did such an isolated society achieve such a high degree of urban sophistication without the influence of larger empires? Excavations and surveys reveal a city built to last, yet much about Leluh remains shrouded in mystery. Coral and basalt blocks are often fitted with remarkable precision, their surfaces shaped to interlock or bear weight evenly. Some blocks are unusually large, reminiscent of the megalithic traditions found across the world, yet no direct link to distant cultures has been substantiated. Did Leluh's builders develop their techniques independently, through observation and experimentation, or might there have been knowledge exchanges across vast ocean distances that we have yet to fully understand? The possibility tantalizes the imagination. Could such isolated ingenuity represent a forgotten chapter in the broader story of human architectural achievement? Leluh is also remarkable for its enduring social significance. Oral traditions suggest that the city was the seat of chiefs and spiritual leaders, its structures designed to assert power and codify hierarchy. Yet, as we examine the ruins today, there is a lingering ambiguity. The ceremonial plazas, pyramidal mounds, and imposing walls speak to authority and ritual, but the exact nature of ceremonies and social interactions is largely lost to time. Did these spaces serve primarily as political arenas, sacred grounds, or centers of commerce and daily life? And how did the inhabitants perceive the city itself, as a protective bastion, a symbolic reflection of order, or a bridge between human life and the spiritual realm? The interplay between environment and construction is another layer of intrigue. Leluh was carefully sited along the coastline, with natural barriers reinforced by artificial walls, terraces, and seawalls. The builders seemed acutely aware of tides, storms, and erosion, creating structures that have survived centuries in a harsh maritime environment. Did this knowledge arise from long observation, trial and error, or a more formalized understanding of engineering principles passed down through generations? The precision and durability of these constructions echo the challenges posed by sites like Brownshill Dolmen and Talatí de Dalt, civilizations separated by time and geography, demonstrating an extraordinary capacity for design, adaptation, and foresight. Yet, despite the extensive research, Leluh retains an aura of unanswered questions. How did such a remote island cultivate a city with complex urban planning and monumental architecture, rivaling larger, better documented civilizations? What role did ritual and cosmology play in shaping streets, walls, and ceremonial platforms? And perhaps most intriguingly, what remains hidden beneath the modern landscape? Artifacts, inscriptions, or structural elements that could illuminate the daily life, governance, and belief systems of this long-vanished society? Standing amidst the remnants of Leluh's stone city, one is struck by a profound sense of continuity and absence. The stones speak of skill, effort, and vision, yet the voices of the builders are silent. Like the capstones of Brownshill Dolmen or the Navetas of Menorca, Leluh bridges the distance between history and mystery. Its streets, walls, and terraces are silent teachers, challenging us to consider the ingenuity of isolated societies, the endurance of human ambition, and the depths of knowledge lost to time. Each block, each terrace, each carefully oriented street invites us to reflect. How did these people conceive, organize, and sustain such an intricate city? What knowledge has vanished with them, leaving only the stones as a testament to their presence? And above all, what else might lie undiscovered, waiting beneath the soil or coral, ready to reshape our understanding of human civilization and its possibilities? Leaving behind the tropical remnants of Leluh's stone city, where coral blocks and terraces hint at a civilization both isolated and astonishingly sophisticated, we travel northward once more, across oceans and continents, to a starkly different yet equally compelling landscape. On the Isle of Lewis, in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, a wind-swept promontory rises against the gray Atlantic sky, and there, perched with unyielding presence, stands Dun Carloway. Unlike the sprawling urbanity of Leluh or the massive, singular stones of Brownshill Dolmen, Dun Carloway presents a structure both compact and formidable. A broch, an Iron Age dry stone tower, whose circular walls have endured centuries of relentless wind, rain, and isolation. From a distance, the broch seems to emerge from the land itself, its thick, curving walls blending with the natural contours of the rocky hillside. The stonework is precise, yet massive, forming a cylindrical tower that reaches nearly 10 meters in height, with walls up to 5 meters thick in places. Archaeologists date Dun Carloway to around 100 BCE, though the exact period of construction and use remains debated. Its strategic location, overlooking fertile valleys and coastal approaches, suggests a defensive function. Yet as we examine its interior and surrounding features, we find that practicality alone cannot account for its complexity. Who built such structures, and what level of coordination and knowledge was required to create a tower of such enduring strength? The broch's design is at once elegant and enigmatic. A narrow entrance leads into a spiraling passageway framed by lintels and carefully fitted stones. Inside, small chambers and galleries are hidden within the thick walls, their precise purpose still unclear. Were these spaces designed for storage, habitation, or ritual? Perhaps all three. The architectural sophistication implies a deep understanding of structural mechanics, how weight distributes across curved surfaces, how stones can interlock to resist collapse over centuries. And yet, despite centuries of study, the methods used to construct such towers with Iron Age technology remain partially speculative. How did small, isolated communities quarry, transport, and assemble such enormous stones with precision without mortar or modern machinery? Dun Carloway sits within a broader landscape of broches, settlement remains, and standing stones, suggesting a network of Iron Age activity across Lewis. Did these towers serve as communal centers, defensive outposts, or markers of status and territory? Some scholars propose that broches functioned as the homes of chieftains or elite families, combining practical defense with displays of power and prestige. Others suggest a more symbolic role, their circular forms representing cosmological or societal order, a physical manifestation of the community's hierarchy and beliefs. Yet, the precise nature of their use and the daily life within their walls remains largely hidden, leaving room for speculation and continued inquiry. Adding to the intrigue are details that hint at sophisticated planning and technique. The stones themselves are locally sourced, yet their placement demonstrates careful selection and shaping, with larger foundation stones supporting lighter upper courses. Within the broche, galleries and staircases are seamlessly integrated, their forms echoing principles of efficiency and durability. Could this knowledge have been passed orally through generations, refined by observation and trial, or might there have been specialized builders whose expertise was lost with time? The broches challenge our assumptions about Iron Age communities, suggesting a level of engineering acumen that often surprises even modern observers. The defensive aspects of Dun Carloway are particularly striking. The narrow entrance could be easily defended, while the thick walls provide insulation and stability. Some scholars theorize that broches were constructed during periods of regional tension, where intertribal conflict or resource disputes required fortified residences. Others propose a dual purpose, both protective and ceremonial, where the tower represented communal identity as much as physical security. The strategic placement of Dun Carloway, commanding views over the surrounding land and sea, reinforces this sense of intentionality. Was the broche meant to assert control over the landscape, or perhaps to communicate a social hierarchy, visible for miles around? Inside, the broche retains an atmosphere of quiet mystery. One can imagine families living within the stone circle, their activities partially hidden in the shadowed galleries and chambers. Fires would have flickered, tools and pottery used daily, children playing under watchful elders, while the outer walls endured the relentless Atlantic storms. The human stories, however, remain largely obscured. What was the rhythm of life here? How did residents balance daily survival with the symbolic and defensive functions of the structure? And what of the rituals, social interactions, or unrecorded events that unfolded within these walls, now lost to time? Even after extensive archaeological study, Dun Carloway continues to pose questions that defy easy answers. How did a relatively small and geographically isolated population develop the technical knowledge to build such durable towers? Was there a broader network of shared architectural principles across the Hebrides, or was each broch an independent experiment in engineering and social expression? And perhaps most compellingly, what does the endurance of these structures reveal about the values and priorities of the people who built them? Was permanence a mark of power, a spiritual imperative, or a pragmatic response to environmental and social challenges? Standing before Dun Carloway today, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe and continuity. The broch's walls, weathered but steadfast, connect us to a people who lived, worked, and thought deeply about their environment over 2 millennia ago. Like Leluh Stone City, Brownshill Dolmen, and Naveta des Tudons, it represents the intersection of human ambition, ingenuity, and mystery, a place where observation and imagination must work hand in hand. Each stone, each curve, each hidden gallery invites us to ask, how did they conceive such a structure? What knowledge has been lost, carried away by centuries of change and silence? And what secrets might remain, still hidden, waiting to reveal themselves to those patient enough to look closely, to listen to the echoes embedded in stone. Dun Carloway, in its quiet resilience, challenges our assumptions about the Iron Age and the people who shaped it. It stands as both a practical monument and a symbolic enigma, urging reflection on the continuity of human creativity, the endurance of labor and skill, and the mysteries that persist in the landscapes we often take for granted. In the end, the brooch does not answer our questions. It asks new ones, compelling us to consider the limits of knowledge, the ingenuity of the past, and the layers of history that remain just beyond reach. Leaving behind the windswept stone towers of Dun Carloway and the rugged landscapes of the Outer Hebrides, our journey takes us far south to the arid plains of coastal Peru, where the distant Pacific Ocean glimmers under a pale sun. Here, in the Casma Valley, lies Sechin Bajo, one of the oldest monumental complexes in the Americas, its foundations quietly submerged beneath layers of soil and sediment. Unlike the compact broch of Dun Carloway or the coral terraces of Leluh, Sechin Bajo sprawls across the desert floor, a testament to human ambition in a landscape both harsh and unforgiving. From a distance, the site appears as undulating mounds, subtle ridges breaking the monotony of sand and rock, but beneath this modest exterior lies evidence of a civilization capable of architectural and organizational feats that challenge modern understanding. Sechin Bajo is remarkable for its antiquity. Excavations reveal that its earliest structures date to around 3,500 BCE, making it older than many of the pyramids of Egypt and contemporary with some of the earliest known settlements in Mesopotamia. The central plaza, ceremonial platforms, and sunken courtyards suggest a society deeply invested in ritual, hierarchy, and communal expression. Yet, the true sophistication of Sechin Bajo is not immediately visible. Massive stone walls, intricately carved reliefs, and remnants of carefully aligned structures are buried beneath centuries of sediment, waiting for patient excavation to uncover them. How did early inhabitants, without metal tools or draft animals, shape, transport, and position stones with such precision? And what motivated them to create monumental architecture in an environment so challenging? As we imagine the site in its prime, the carvings stand out as particularly intriguing. Some depict figures with exaggerated features, armed and adorned in ceremonial garb, their forms frozen in relief on walls that have survived millennia. Scholars suggest these may represent warriors, rulers, or deities, yet their exact meaning remains unclear. Are these depictions merely symbolic, or do they convey historical events, social hierarchies, or cosmological beliefs? The artistry is sophisticated, with a visual language that communicates power, ritual, and identity, yet one that is largely opaque to modern interpretation. In these faces etched into stone, we glimpse the minds of a culture striving to record and communicate, even in an era before writing, as we know it, existed. Sechin Bajo also challenges assumptions about the scale and organization of early societies in the Andes. The site encompasses multiple layers of construction, indicating centuries of continuous use and adaptation. Each layer tells a story of societal evolution, technological innovation, and environmental adaptation. Some structures appear to have been raised, modified, or reinforced over generations, suggesting that knowledge was carefully preserved and passed down. Yet, despite this continuity, many aspects remain enigmatic. Why choose this specific location? How did communities coordinate labor on such a massive scale? And what rituals or social structures supported the creation of monumental architecture long before the rise of state-level civilizations? Adding to the mystery is the sophistication of Sechin Bajo's engineering. Stone walls and platforms are often oriented with precision, hinting at knowledge of geometry, alignment, and perhaps even celestial cycles. Some researchers propose connections to solar or seasonal markers, aligning ceremonial spaces with the rising sun or specific astronomical events. Others suggest hydraulic or drainage systems may have been integrated to manage occasional floods or channel water for ritual purposes. Such ingenuity, achieved in a pre-ceramic, early agricultural society, raises profound questions about the origins of technical knowledge and the ability of seemingly small communities to organize and execute large-scale architectural projects. The context of Sechin Bajo amplifies its mystery. Situated within the arid Kasma Valley, the site is part of a broader complex of settlements, plazas, and mounds, suggesting a sophisticated network of social and ritual centers. How interconnected were these communities? Did they share techniques, symbols, and traditions across the valley? Or did each center develop independently? And, perhaps most compellingly, what drove these early builders to create monumental stone architecture in a landscape so unforgiving, where survival itself would have demanded significant attention and energy? Despite decades of study, Sechin Bajo continues to reveal surprises. Excavations have uncovered sunken courtyards and platforms hidden beneath layers of earth, with stone reliefs depicting unknown symbols and scenes. Some stones bear marks suggesting they were carved with methods that remain difficult to replicate even today. Could these techniques have been passed down through generations, refined with observational knowledge? Or might they represent innovations that have been lost entirely? And as we dig deeper, both literally and figuratively, the more we realize how much of this ancient culture's knowledge, beliefs, and daily life remains concealed beneath the soil. Standing on the periphery of Sechin Bajo today, there is a profound sense of quiet resilience. The desert winds sweep across the buried plazas, carrying dust and sand, yet the stones themselves endure, silent witnesses to human endeavor spanning millennia. Like Carloway, Leluh Stone City, and Brownshill Dolmen, Sechin Bajo embodies the intersection of practicality, ritual, and mystery. Its builders conceived of a cityscape that balanced survival, social organization, and spiritual expression, leaving behind structures that continue to challenge our understanding. Each wall, each relief, each platform invites reflection. What knowledge, what beliefs, what stories have been lost to time, buried beneath sediment and memory? And what might remain undiscovered, waiting for those patient and attentive enough to uncover the layers of this enigmatic site? Sechin Bajo, in its quiet grandeur, reminds us that human ingenuity has always found a way to thrive even in the harshest conditions. It challenges us to reconsider the origins of monumental architecture, the capabilities of early societies, and the mysteries that remain hidden across the globe. In the interplay of earth, stone, and human ambition, the site poses questions that endure. How did these early Andean communities conceive, plan, and execute such monumental constructions? What symbolic and practical purposes did these spaces serve? And what further secrets lie beneath the Kasma Valley sands, still waiting to reshape our understanding of the dawn of complex society in the Americas? Leaving behind the arid plains and sunken plazas of Sechin Bajo, where the earliest monumental architecture in the Americas quietly speaks of ambition and ritual, we journey across continents to the highlands of Ethiopia. Here, amid rolling grasslands and fertile plateaus, a landscape that seems timeless stretches under a sky of soft, shifting light. Scattered across this open terrain stand the Tiya Stelae, rows of towering stone monuments, their surfaces engraved with enigmatic symbols and geometric patterns. Unlike the sprawling complexes of Sechin Bajo or the massive dry stone towers of Carloway, the Tiya Stelae are singular yet numerous, each rising from the earth like a sentinel, marking a landscape that whispers of lives long past and beliefs long obscured. From a distance, the stelae are imposing and elegant, their heights varying from 1 to 6 meters. Made from locally quarried sandstone, they are carved with an array of motifs, concentric circles, swords, and abstract symbols whose meanings remain debated. Archaeologists date the site to between the 10th and 15th centuries CE, although the absence of written records leaves much open to interpretation. Unlike structures that suggest domestic or defensive purposes, the stelae appear primarily commemorative, possibly marking burials, rituals, or territorial boundaries. Yet even their funerary role does not fully explain the care, effort, and precision involved in shaping and erecting each stone. How were these monuments transported, aligned, and inscribed in a pre-industrial society? And why choose this specific landscape to leave such enduring markers? Walking among the stelae, one is immediately struck by the repetition of motifs and the subtleties of design. Swords, for instance, are frequently carved in relief, often oriented vertically or diagonally along the stone face. Some researchers suggest that these depictions indicate a warrior culture or commemorate individuals of high social status. Others propose symbolic interpretations, where the swords and geometric shapes may reference spiritual beliefs, cosmological knowledge, or abstract representations of community values. The repetition and careful arrangement hint at shared traditions and sophisticated social organization, yet the absence of corroborating written texts leaves the symbols open to interpretation, allowing the stones themselves to speak their silent language of memory and meaning. The positioning of the stelae adds another layer of intrigue. They are arranged in clusters across the plateau, often adjacent to burial mounds, suggesting a link between the monuments and interment practices. Yet the precise criteria for placement remain unclear. Were the stones aligned with celestial events, natural features, or social networks of kinship and authority? Some researchers propose that these alignments reflect an understanding of solar, lunar, or seasonal cycles, subtly integrating cosmology into the very fabric of the site. Others see the layout as a form of territorial marking, asserting presence and identity across a landscape that could otherwise appear vast and undifferentiated. The stelae are at once personal and communal, monumental and intimate, tangible and mysterious. The craftsmanship of the Tiya Stelae is equally compelling. Sandstone, while relatively soft compared to granite or basalt, still requires careful technique to shape and inscribe. The stelae display both uniformity and variation, suggesting shared conventions alongside individual expression. Did specialized artisans carve these stones, traveling across regions to erect them, or were the motifs the product of local communities working collectively? The tools, techniques, and labor organization remain subjects of study, and yet in every chiseled line there is evidence of intentionality, skill, and perhaps ritual significance embedded in the very act of creation. Each stone embodies both human effort and cultural meaning, a bridge across centuries that invites observation and contemplation. Tiya also raises questions about the broader society that produced these monuments. The sheer number of stelae in the region, along with associated burial sites, implies a community capable of complex social organization, one that coordinated labor, maintained shared traditions, and imbued everyday life with ritual significance. Yet much about this society is opaque. What beliefs guided their lives? How did they view death, the afterlife, and their connection to ancestors or the cosmos? And what stories, unrecorded in written form, are encoded in the carvings hidden in plain sight across the plateau? The stelae, standing silently in open grasslands, suggest a culture conscious of memory, presence, and permanence, a culture that sought to assert continuity in stone. Beyond the symbolic and social dimensions, the Tiya Stelae confront us with questions of technique and endurance. How were these stones quarried, transported, and erected with such precision? Did the builders employ methods now lost to history, or were these feats achieved through practical ingenuity honed over generations? In some cases, the alignment and balance of the stelae are strikingly precise, evoking questions similar to those raised by Sechin Bajo, Dun Carloway, and Leluh Stone City. Civilizations separated by geography and time, each demonstrating remarkable skill and vision. Could there have been shared knowledge or inspiration across regions, or are these parallel expressions of human creativity emerging independently in response to universal social and ritual needs? Standing among the Tiya Stelae today, one is enveloped by both awe and reflection. The stones rise from the earth as monuments to lives, beliefs, and practices that are largely hidden from us. They endure in quiet defiance of time, inviting contemplation, study, and wonder. Each carving, each placement, and each cluster prompts questions that resonate across millennia. Who exactly were the people who shaped these stones? What did these symbols mean to them, and how did they structure their social and spiritual lives around them? And, perhaps most compellingly, what secrets remain buried, hidden in soil, in memory, or in the fading landscape, waiting to reveal themselves to those willing to observe with patience and curiosity? Tiya Stelae, in their silent rows and etched faces, remind us that human expression has always sought permanence, even in the absence of written language or monumental cities. Like Sechin Bajo, Brownshill Dolmen, and Dun Carloway, they occupy the liminal space between the known and the mysterious, preserving both achievement and enigma. Each stone invites us to reflect on the ingenuity, beliefs, and aspirations of the past, while acknowledging how much remains beyond reach. And as we walk through the grasslands, tracing paths laid down by people thousands of years ago, we are left with a single, enduring thought. How many more stories lie hidden, etched in stone or buried beneath the earth, awaiting discovery by those patient enough to see, listen, and wonder? Leaving behind the open grasslands and silent stone markers of Tiya, where the stelae stand as enduring witnesses to human memory and ritual, our journey takes us further south, across the equator and high into the Andean highlands of Peru. Here, amid jagged mountains, terraced valleys, and thin, crisp air, lies Qenqo, a site both enigmatic and haunting, carved into the living rock with a precision and intent that has fascinated scholars for generations. Unlike the upright stelae of Ethiopia or the sunken plazas of Sechin Bajo, Qenqo presents a labyrinthine combination of rock-cut channels, carved chambers, and ceremonial niches. Its name, meaning zigzag in the Quechua language, hints at the winding passages and intricate patterns etched into stone, a physical expression of a culture deeply attuned to both landscape and ritual. From the moment one approaches Qenqo, the site conveys a sense of purpose and mystery. The stone has been meticulously sculpted to form winding corridors, vertical shafts, and deep niches, some barely wide enough for a person to navigate. In certain chambers, the rock has been hollowed to create altars, pits, or troughs that may have been used for ceremonial or sacrificial purposes. Archaeologists date Qenqo to the late Inca period, roughly the 15th century CE, yet its precise role within Inca society, and the reasoning behind its unusual design, remains the subject of debate. Was it primarily a site of religious ritual, a center for mummification, or a ceremonial space connected to astronomical observation? Perhaps it served multiple functions, layered with symbolic meanings that have faded over time. The site's most striking feature is its carved channel, winding through the main chamber like a sculpted river. Some scholars propose it was used for libations or offerings, allowing liquids such as chicha or blood to flow along a prescribed path, emphasizing the sacred and transformative nature of ritual. Others suggest that the channels may have facilitated the processing of medicinal plants, or even served as conduits for the Inca belief in the flow of spiritual energy, linking physical action with metaphysical consequence. Yet, despite these hypotheses, the true function remains elusive. Every groove, pit, and niche seems intentional, hinting at a logic that we only partially comprehend, a ritual language etched into stone that has outlasted the culture that created it. Qenqo is also remarkable for the precision of its stonework. Massive blocks and carved surfaces fit seamlessly, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of engineering and technique. The Inca were renowned for their stonemasonry, yet the complexity of Qenqo's rock-cut labyrinth is exceptional even within this tradition. How did the builders, using only simple tools, sculpt such intricate forms directly from the living rock? What methods ensured the stability of chambers, the flow of channels, and the durability of altars? The answers are only partially known, leaving the mind to wonder at the ingenuity, observation, and experimentation that must have informed every cut, curve, and groove. The positioning of Qenqo within the Andean landscape adds further layers of intrigue. Situated on a hill overlooking the sacred valley, the site offers commanding views of the surrounding terrain, connecting it visually to nearby centers such as Cusco and Sacsayhuaman. Was this a strategic choice for ceremony, aligning the rituals performed here with the larger Inca cosmology and the flow of energy across the land? Some researchers suggest that Qenqo's orientation may correlate with solstices or other astronomical events, allowing the Inca to embed celestial observation into ceremonial practice. Others focus on the site's topography, noting that water flowing through its channels could have symbolized rivers and life-giving forces, reinforcing the union of physical and spiritual realms. The combination of landscape, stonework, and ritual channels reflects a deliberate, multi-layered design whose full significance continues to elude modern understanding. The social and spiritual context of Qenqo also invites contemplation. The Inca civilization placed enormous emphasis on ritual, hierarchy, and the veneration of ancestors, yet the site challenges conventional interpretations of these practices. Was Qenqo reserved for elite priests and nobles, or did it serve a broader communal function? Did the rituals conducted here involve offerings to the gods, rites of passage, or initiation ceremonies? The absence of written records, coupled with the site's eroded features, leaves these questions largely unanswered. And yet, the spatial complexity, the carving of channels, and the creation of enclosed niches all point to deliberate, meaningful activity, a choreography of stone and spirit that continues to resonate across centuries. Even the smallest details at Qenqo raise questions. Some niches bear evidence of repeated use, their surfaces worn smooth, suggesting long-term ritual activity. Certain chambers are acoustically resonant, amplifying the spoken word or the sound of ceremonial implements. Could the builders have been aware of these acoustic properties, integrating them intentionally into ritual practice to enhance spiritual experience? And what of the symbolism encoded in the zigzag patterns and labyrinthine layout? Were they meant to guide the initiate through stages of purification, enlightenment, or communion with the divine? Each interpretation offers tantalizing possibilities, yet none provides a definitive answer. Standing amid the carved stones and shadowed corridors of Qenqo, the visitor is confronted with a profound sense of continuity and mystery. The site embodies human creativity, technical skill, and spiritual expression, yet it resists easy categorization. Like Tiya Stelae, Sechin Bajo, and Carloway, Qenqo challenges us to consider the ingenuity of its builders, the knowledge they possessed, and the world they envisioned, a world in which stone, ritual, and landscape were intimately intertwined. Each channel, chamber, and carved niche asks us to reflect. How did they conceive of such a space? What rituals, beliefs, or social functions informed its creation? and what secrets remain hidden, waiting to reveal themselves to those patient enough to explore, observe, and wonder. Qenqo, in its carved complexity and enigmatic presence, reminds us that the past is layered, multifaceted, and often unknowable. Its stones speak not only of the people who shaped them, but also of the enduring human impulse to create, to organize, and to seek meaning in the world. And as we trace the paths of its channels, linger in its shadowed niches, and consider the hands that shaped its rock, we are left with a single, compelling thought. What other knowledge, buried or forgotten, might remain just out of reach, embedded in stone, waiting to illuminate the depths of human ingenuity and belief? Leaving the carved labyrinths and sacred chambers of Qenqo, where the Inca etched ritual, architecture, and cosmology into living rock, our journey carries us once more across seas and centuries, arriving in the Mediterranean, on the small island of Malta. Here, amid gently rolling plains and limestone outcrops, lie the Tarxien Temples, an extraordinary complex of megalithic structures whose origins predate the pyramids of Egypt. Unlike the labyrinthine corridors of Qenqo or the zigzagging stelae of Tiya, Tarxien rises in carefully arranged halls and altars, its stones massive yet intricately carved, their surfaces bearing the faint traces of reliefs depicting animals, spirals, and abstract forms. From the moment one steps onto the site, there is a palpable sense of human purpose intertwined with mystery, a feeling that every stone was chosen, placed, and shaped with intention that extends beyond simple construction. The Tarxien Temples date to approximately 3,150 to 2,500 BCE, forming part of Malta's enigmatic megalithic tradition. Archaeologists have uncovered a series of interlinked structures, including sanctuaries, altars, and passageways, often decorated with relief carvings of cattle, serpents, and geometric motifs. The precision of the stonework is striking. Massive blocks are fitted together with remarkable accuracy, and some surfaces bear traces of corbelling and advanced masonry techniques. The scale and sophistication suggest not only technical skill, but also a culture deeply invested in ritual, symbolism, and the expression of communal or spiritual identity. How did the builders achieve such precision with the tools available at the time, and what knowledge guided their construction methods? Approaching the central complex, one notices the careful orientation of the temples. Some archaeologists suggest alignments with solstitial or lunar cycles, indicating an understanding of astronomical phenomena that may have influenced ritual practices. Others focus on the placement of altars and passageways, proposing that movement through the temples may have followed prescribed ceremonial routes, with initiates or priests interacting with the stones, carvings, and chambers in ways now lost to us. Each hall and altar seems to carry both a functional and symbolic weight, reflecting a worldview in which architecture, ritual, and environment were inseparable. The reliefs themselves are both mesmerizing and enigmatic. Spirals, concentric circles, and depictions of cattle, often interpreted as sacred, adorn the walls, suggesting a symbolic language or record of beliefs. Were these representations purely decorative, or did they encode ritual knowledge, cosmological concepts, or social hierarchies? Some scholars argue that the repeated motifs indicate a shared symbolic system across the Maltese archipelago, connecting Tarxien to nearby temples such as Hagar Chim and Menajdra. Yet the meaning of these symbols remains tantalizingly out of reach, and the precise rituals performed within these spaces remain speculative, reconstructed only through careful observation and inference. The construction techniques at Tarxien further deepen the mystery. Large limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, were moved and shaped with apparent skill and precision. Corbelled ceilings, post and lintel arrangements, and carefully dressed stone surfaces demonstrate an understanding of weight distribution and structural stability that continues to impress modern observers. How did the builders transport and erect these megaliths across uneven terrain? Were there systems of ramps, levers, or coordinated labor? And if so, how was this knowledge organized and preserved within a society that left no written records? The answer is partially inferred through archaeology, but much remains unknown, leaving the stones themselves to speak in silence. Tarxien is also remarkable for the interplay between domestic and ceremonial space. Excavations suggest that parts of the complex may have been used for ritual feasting, possibly linked to offerings of food or animals, while other areas served as sanctuaries for priests or elite individuals. The combination of functional, ceremonial, and symbolic elements reflects a culture deeply attuned to both social organization and spiritual life. What did daily life look like in connection with these temples? How did ritual, hierarchy, and community converge in these halls, and what were the unrecorded practices that animated the space? The location of Tarxien further enhances its intrigue. Situated on fertile plains near water sources and natural stone quarries, the site demonstrates a thoughtful integration of environment and architecture. Its proximity to other megalithic complexes suggests a network of sacred spaces, possibly connected by trade, ritual, or cultural exchange. Could these temples have functioned as regional centers of authority, pilgrimage, or education, where knowledge of ritual, astronomy, and architecture was transmitted across generations? And how did these isolated island communities cultivate such architectural sophistication independently, at a time when writing, metallurgy, and large-scale urbanization were still emerging elsewhere? Standing amid the megaliths of Tarxien, one is struck by the tension between permanence and enigma. The stones endure, weathered but steadfast, while the people who shaped them have long vanished. Like Qenqo, Tiya Stelae, and Sechin Bajo, Tarxien occupies the liminal space between the known and the unknown. Each carving, each carefully placed block, and each architectural feature invites reflection. What knowledge guided its creation? What rituals were enacted here, and how were they understood by those who participated? And perhaps most compellingly, what stories, beliefs, and methods remain hidden beneath the surface, waiting for patient study and contemplation? Tarxien temples, in their silent grandeur and intricate design, remind us that human ingenuity, devotion, and curiosity are constants across time and geography. These stones, arranged millennia ago, speak of communities capable of planning, organization, and symbolic expression far beyond what might be assumed for a prehistoric society. And yet, like the other ancient structures we have explored, Tarxien resists definitive interpretation, inviting both wonder and humility. As we trace the pathways, observe the carvings, and consider the hands that shaped each block, one question endures: how much knowledge, how many beliefs, and how much artistry remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who are willing to look, listen, and imagine the world as their creators once did? Leaving the limestone halls and intricate reliefs of Malta's Tarxien temples behind, where the megaliths whisper of ritual, symbolism, and ancient ingenuity, our journey once again turns across continents, this time to the rugged Andes of northern Peru. Here, amid cloud-wreathed peaks and deep valleys, stands Kuelap, a fortress of staggering scale and mystery, perched precariously on a ridge nearly 3,000 meters above sea level. Unlike the sanctuaries of Tarxien or the subterranean labyrinths of Qenqo, Kuelap occupies the sky itself, its stone walls rising from sheer cliffs as if grown from the mountains. From a distance, it resembles a city suspended in mist, a monumental silhouette blending seamlessly with the surrounding landscape, both natural and human-made, ancient yet enduring. The sheer presence of Kuelap evokes awe. Its walls, constructed from finely cut limestone blocks, stretch over 600 meters in length, enclosing terraces, circular dwellings, ceremonial spaces, and narrow passageways. The fortress is often compared to Machu Picchu in scale and complexity, yet Kuelap predates the Inca by centuries, built by the Chachapoya culture, sometimes referred to as the Warriors of the Clouds. Its massive stones are stacked with impressive precision, creating walls that rise as high as 20 meters in some sections, a feat that continues to challenge our understanding of pre-Columbian engineering. How did this society, isolated among steep Andean slopes and cloud forests, achieve such architectural sophistication? What motivated the Chachapoya to conceive a fortress of this magnitude, both defensible and ceremonial, in a landscape so remote and challenging? Approaching Kuelap, one is immediately struck by its dual nature, defensive and domestic, monumental yet intimately human. Narrow, winding entrances lead into circular houses, each carefully aligned within the fortress walls, suggesting not only consideration of defense but also of communal and ritual life. Some scholars propose that the fortress was primarily a refuge from invaders, while others see it as a ceremonial or political center where elites governed, conducted rituals, and maintained the social cohesion of Chachapoya communities. Could it have served both purposes simultaneously, a fusion of practicality and symbolism, where every wall, terrace, and doorway carried multiple layers of meaning? The architecture of Kuelap is remarkable for its uniformity and precision. Circular dwellings, typically 2 to 4 meters in diameter, are built with corbelled roofs and walls that taper gracefully toward the top, a design that provides both stability and resistance to seismic activity, a necessity in the earthquake-prone Andes. Carved niches and friezes decorate the walls, often depicting abstract forms, felines, and serpentine motifs, hinting at ritual or symbolic significance. What did these images represent to the Chachapoya? Were they spiritual guardians, clan symbols, or narratives of myth and history encoded in stone? The absence of written records leaves their meaning elusive, yet their presence speaks of deliberate intent, artistic vision, and cultural continuity. The layout of Kuelap adds another layer of intrigue. Terraces descend from the central fortress, creating a hierarchical structure that suggests careful planning of both social and environmental interaction. Some researchers propose that these terraces were used for agriculture, storage, or ritual spaces, while others suggest that their design facilitated water management and protection from landslides or erosion. The integration of environmental adaptation with monumental construction reveals a deep understanding of local ecology, engineering, and human habitation. How did the Chachapoya balance these practical concerns with the ceremonial and symbolic demands of the site? How did they coordinate labor, resource acquisition, and construction over generations in such a steep and challenging terrain? Beyond engineering, Kuelap holds profound mysteries regarding its social and spiritual dimensions. The fortress likely housed hundreds of people, perhaps organized hierarchically according to status, lineage, or religious role. Circular dwellings may have contained hearths, ceremonial altars, and storage spaces, suggesting a life deeply intertwined with ritual, domestic necessity, and communal governance. Yet, the precise nature of daily life within Kuelap is largely unknown. What festivals, rites, or observances were conducted within these walls? Were the Chachapoya guided by astronomical observation, spiritual intuition, or a combination of both? And what knowledge of architecture, astronomy, or social organization has been lost to time, leaving only the stones themselves as evidence of human intent? Kuelap's defensive qualities are equally compelling. Its position atop a steep ridge, combined with narrow entrances and high walls, would have made it difficult for invaders to penetrate. Archaeologists have debated whether it was a permanent settlement fortified against persistent threats, or a temporary refuge during times of conflict. Evidence of pottery, tools, and burial practices suggests a long-term occupation, Yet the fortress's scale and construction demand organized labor, logistical planning, and architectural expertise rarely attributed to societies in such isolated terrain. How did the Chachapoya acquire and transmit this knowledge? Were there specialized builders and planners, or was construction a communal endeavor guided by observation, experience, and oral instruction? The answers remain speculative, yet the enduring strength and complexity of the fortress testify to human ingenuity. The cultural context of Kuelap further deepens its mystery. The Chachapoya are often described as enigmatic, with little surviving written or oral history prior to their eventual incorporation into the Inca Empire. Their art, architecture, and burial practices suggest a society rich in symbolism, spiritual belief, and social organization. Could Kuelap have functioned as both a political and religious center, a nexus where elite authority, spiritual ritual, and communal life intersected? And what can the fortress tell us about the broader Chachapoya worldview, their relationship with the surrounding landscape, and their understanding of permanence, memory, and the cosmos? Standing atop the fortress today, enveloped by clouds and the vast Andean expanse, one is struck by both awe and humility. The walls, terraces, and circular dwellings are a testament to human ambition, skill, and vision, yet they raise more questions than they answer. Like the Tarxien Temples, Qenqo, and Sechin Bajo, Kuelap challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about ancient societies, their engineering capabilities, social organization, and symbolic sophistication. Each stone, each wall, each frieze asks us to reflect. What knowledge, practices, and beliefs have been lost? How much remains hidden, waiting to be discovered beneath the forested slopes or in the unexcavated terraces? And perhaps, most compellingly, what can Kuelap teach us about the capacity for human creativity and ingenuity when people are faced with both isolation and environmental challenge? Kuelap Fortress, in its monumental presence and intricate design, stands as a silent witness to the ingenuity, ritual life, and social complexity of the Chachapoya. It bridges the known and the unknown, offering glimpses of past achievement while preserving an enduring mystery. As mist swirls through its terraces and winds whistle along its walls, we are reminded that the past is never fully revealed, and that the legacy of human ambition and curiosity often remains encoded in stone, waiting for those who are patient enough to observe, reflect, and wonder. And so, as we trace the pathways and gaze across the cloud-cloaked valleys, one question lingers. What further secrets, stories, and knowledge lie hidden within these walls, beyond the reach of time, waiting for discovery? Leaving behind the cloud-shrouded terraces and monumental walls of Kuelap Fortress, where the Chachapoya shaped stone into fortification, community, and ritual space, our journey turns across continents once again, this time toward the highlands of eastern Turkey. Here, in the rugged expanse of the Taurus Mountains, rises Nemrut Dağ, Mount Nemrut, a site both grand and enigmatic, perched nearly 2,150 meters above sea level. Unlike Kuelap's compact fortifications or Tarxien's megalithic halls, Nemrut Dağ is a fusion of mountain, monument, and cosmos, where colossal statues, tumulus structures, and terraces converge to create a landscape that is at once ceremonial, political, and profoundly mysterious. From afar, the mountain appears ordinary, yet as one ascends its slopes, the scale and ambition of human endeavor emerge, monumental and awe-inspiring against the backdrop of sky and stone. The summit of Nemrut Dağ is dominated by a tumulus of crushed stone, nearly 50 meters high and encircled by a series of terraces adorned with colossal statues. These figures, sculpted from limestone blocks, depict a pantheon of gods, animals, and even deified rulers, their faces facing the horizon, eternally gazing toward sunrise and sunset. The site dates to the 1st century BCE, and is attributed to King Antiochus I of Commagene, who sought to fuse Greek, Persian, and local Anatolian religious traditions into a cohesive ideological statement. Yet, while historians have provided context for its creation, the reasoning behind specific choices, the arrangement of the statues, the construction of the tumulus, and the symbolic placement of reliefs remains a subject of debate. What drove Antiochus to elevate his vision so literally above the world, carving ideology and power into stone atop a remote peak? Ascending Nemrut Dağ, one encounters terraces that extend east and west from the tumulus, where the colossal figures are positioned with meticulous symmetry. Each statue, some reaching nearly 8 meters in height, once crowned a stone pedestal and wore elaborate carved headgear. There forms a combination of Persian grandeur and Hellenistic realism. Lions, eagles, and other animals flank the human figures, creating a complex iconography that blends political power with religious symbolism. Why these particular deities and animals? How did they communicate messages of authority, protection, and cosmology to the people of Commagene? And why was the mountain summit, with its exposure to the elements and challenging terrain, chosen as the canvas for this ambitious statement? The engineering and construction of Nemrut Dağ are as remarkable as its symbolic intent. The tumulus itself, made of thousands of tons of loose stones, has resisted centuries of wind, snow, and seismic activity, preserving the terraces and statues that surround it. Archaeologists estimate that constructing the summit complex required extraordinary planning, labor, and resources, particularly given the limited tools and technology of the time. How were colossal stones transported up steep mountain slopes? What techniques allowed for the precise alignment of statues and terraces, ensuring both stability and visual symmetry? And what does this reveal about the social and political organization of Commagene, a kingdom often overlooked in the broader narratives of ancient history? The artistic and symbolic elements of Nemrut Dağ further deepen its mystery. Heads of the colossal statues, now detached and lying upon the terraces, evoke both human dignity and divine authority. Reliefs carved into pedestals and retaining walls depict rituals, sun worship, and mythological narratives that intertwine Greek and Persian influences. The blending of artistic styles, cultural motifs, and religious iconography suggests a sophisticated understanding of cross-cultural symbolism. Was the mountain summit a ceremonial center, a dynastic monument, or a sacred observatory where cosmic events were observed and celebrated? Perhaps it was all three. A place where earthly power and divine aspiration were inseparable, carved and arranged to communicate with both the human and spiritual realms. Nemrut Dağ's location is integral to its impact. From the summit, vast plains and distant mountain ranges unfold in every direction, suggesting that the placement of statues and terraces was designed to interact with the landscape itself. Some researchers posit that sunrise and sunset alignments were crucial, marking seasonal changes or ritual observances, while others focus on the visual and psychological impression of the mountain when approached from below. The summit functions both as a statement of authority and as a lens through which the cosmos, territory, and political ideology intersect. How intentional were these alignments, and how much of the design was meant to be seen only from specific vantage points, creating a layered experience for observers, initiates, and rulers alike? The social and spiritual implications of Nemrut Dağ remain a compelling enigma. Antiochus I sought to legitimize his rule through a pantheon that blended ancestral deities, Greek gods, and his own self-deification. Yet the site also suggests broader ceremonial functions, possibly including sacrifices, offerings, and seasonal observances. How were these rituals conducted atop such a remote and exposed summit? What knowledge of astronomy, religious tradition, and ritual choreography informed the placement of statues and the design of terraces? And how did ordinary people perceive the mountain, the statues, and the presence of divine authority enshrined in stone. The answers, like the statues themselves, are partially obscured by time, leaving a silent dialogue between past and present. The enduring mystery of Nemrut Dağ is heightened by the interplay of scale, symbolism, and environment. Colossal heads, once part of statues that gazed across the horizon, now lie scattered across the terraces, evoking both grandeur and fragility. The tumulus, despite centuries of weathering, preserves the intention of monumental elevation. Each element, the statues, the terraces, the tumulus, was carefully conceived, yet the precise reasoning behind their configuration remains elusive. Was it primarily a dynastic propaganda statement, a sacred ceremonial center, an astronomical observatory, or a combination of all these functions? The lack of written explanation from the era allows speculation, inviting us to contemplate the unknown in ways that few ancient sites can. Standing among the fractured heads and wind-swept terraces of Nemrut Dağ, one is confronted by a profound sense of human ambition, creativity, and impermanence. The site embodies both technical achievement and spiritual aspiration, a place where ideology, art, and landscape converge in monumental form. Like Kuelap, Tarxien, and Qenqo, it challenges our understanding of ancient societies, their engineering capabilities, and the symbolic sophistication they achieved in seemingly remote locations. Each stone, each alignment, and each carved visage compels us to ask, what knowledge guided the creation of this summit? What rituals, beliefs, and social structures are encoded in the terraces, statues, and tumulus? And what secrets of Commagene remain hidden, perhaps buried beneath stone, eroded by wind, or preserved in the silent voids between human memory and history? Nemrut Dağ, in its colossal presence and enigmatic purpose, reminds us that human ambition often reaches for the skies, manifesting in stone, landscape, and ritual. The summit preserves both the vision of a king and the labor of countless hands, yet it also preserves questions about power, belief, cosmology, and the relationship between humanity and the divine. As the sun rises or sets behind the statues, casting long shadows across terraces and tumulus, the mountain seems to ask us to reflect. How did a society, isolated by geography yet connected by culture, conceive, plan, and execute such an enduring monument? And what might still remain undiscovered, waiting to reveal further truths about human ingenuity, spiritual expression, and the capacity for awe-inspiring creation, leaving the cloud-wreathed summit and monumental statues of Nemrut Dağ behind, where the ambitions of King Antiochus I of Commagene fused politics, religion, and landscape into a single monumental vision. Our journey carries us westward across the Mediterranean to the rugged hills of the Peloponnese in Greece. Here, on a rocky hilltop overlooking fertile plains, lie the remnants of Mycenae, an ancient citadel shrouded in legend. Its colossal Cyclopean walls, rising as silent witnesses to a civilization whose power, sophistication, and enigma have captivated scholars for centuries. Unlike Nemrut Dağ's ceremonial summits or Kuelap's sky-high terraces, Mycenae combines formidable defense with urban planning. Its architecture designed both to impress and to protect, to endure and to intimidate. The Cyclopean walls of Mycenae are immediately striking in their scale and composition. Massive limestone blocks, some weighing upwards of 20 tons, are fitted together with astonishing precision, their sheer size giving rise to the ancient Greek myth that only the Cyclopes, giants of legend, could have moved them. These walls, encompassing the Acropolis, create a formidable barrier, rising in imposing sections that follow the contours of the hill, embracing natural cliffs while imposing human will upon the landscape. How did the Mycenaeans, without modern machinery, quarry, transport, and assemble such enormous stones? What engineering methods allowed for stability, alignment, and endurance in a seismically active region. The questions linger, unanswered, even as the walls themselves speak eloquently of skill, effort, and ambition. Entering the citadel through monumental gates, one encounters the famous Lion Gate, a single, intricately carved entrance flanked by massive stone reliefs depicting guardian lions. The gateway is not merely functional. It is a statement of authority, a symbolic threshold signaling the power and prestige of those who dwelled within. The alignment and construction of the gate reflect careful planning, combining defensive necessity with visual and symbolic impact. Did the lions serve purely as protective symbols, or did they communicate a deeper narrative about kingship, divine favor, or mythological lineage? Every element, from the corbelled arch to the positioning of the reliefs, invites speculation on the intertwining of practicality, belief, and representation. The Cyclopean walls themselves present a mystery beyond their scale. Unlike regular masonry, these massive blocks are fitted together without mortar, relying on weight, friction, and precision placement to ensure stability. Some stones bear subtle shaping, others remain raw, yet the resulting structure has withstood millennia of earthquakes, weathering, and human activity. What observational knowledge, geometric understanding, or trial-and-error ingenuity allowed the Mycenaeans to achieve such results? And why was such monumental effort invested in defensive walls when the interior spaces, palaces, tombs, and courtyards also reveal a society concerned with ceremony, administration, and display? The juxtaposition of practicality and spectacle suggests a culture deeply aware of both human vulnerability and social perception. Within the walls, the layout of Mycenae further complicates our understanding. Palatial structures, storerooms, and courtyards are arranged in ways that suggest hierarchy, ritual, and administrative organization. Grave circles, such as Grave Circle A and B, containing rich burials with gold, weapons, and jewelry, indicate social stratification and elaborate funerary practices. The Cyclopean walls, encircling these spaces, elevate them above the surrounding terrain, signaling protection, but also prestige. Were the walls primarily defensive, or were they equally performative, a means of communicating power to both residents and outsiders? And how did the Mycenaeans balance the monumental labor required for construction with the day-to-day demands of sustaining a thriving city? The myths that surround Mycenae, its association with Agamemnon, the Trojan War, and the heroes of Homeric epics, add layers of cultural resonance and mystery. While archaeology provides insight into urban planning, material culture, and social hierarchy, the symbolic dimensions of the walls and gates remain partially elusive. Did the Cyclopean walls convey a sense of divine favor, heroic identity, or ancestral power? How much of their construction and design was informed by mythology, ritual, or symbolic imagination, rather than purely practical considerations? And to what extent do these legends, passed down orally for generations, reflect actual historical memory, or serve to amplify the aura of enigma surrounding the site? The engineering challenges of Cyclopean masonry are compounded by the topography. The walls follow natural ridges, embrace cliffs, and integrate with terraces, creating a seamless blend of natural and artificial fortification. The precise placement of stones, some of which weigh multiple tons, raises questions about logistics, coordination, and specialized knowledge. Were there master builders directing teams of laborers, or was the knowledge distributed communally through hands-on apprenticeship? How did the Mycenaeans achieve such stability without the tools and mechanical advantage available in later civilizations? The answers remain speculative, but the durability and precision of the walls are undeniable, leaving us to wonder at the ingenuity of those who envisioned and executed them. The Cyclopean walls are also a testament to long-term vision. Construction would have required immense planning, resource management, and labor organization. suggesting a society capable of complex governance, social coordination, and strategic foresight. Yet the ultimate collapse of Mycenaean power, sometime around the 12th century BCE, hints at the fragility of even the most monumental human endeavors. What factors led to the decline of a society capable of such architectural mastery? Was it external invasion, environmental pressures, internal strife, or a combination of all these forces? And how does this ephemeral nature of human civilization contrast with the permanence of the stone walls themselves? Walking along the walls today, one feels both intimacy and enormity. Each stone embodies the labor, intention, and vision of a civilization whose full story we may never know. Like Nemrut Dağ, Kuelap, and Tarxien, Mycenae occupies a space between what can be documented and what remains mysterious, between engineering achievement and symbolic meaning, between the lived experience of the past and our interpretation in the present. Every angle, every fitting of stone, every sculpted lion challenges our understanding of human capability, prompting reflection on how cultures perceive permanence, authority, and legacy. The Cyclopean walls, in their silent grandeur, continue to provoke questions. How did the Mycenaeans organize the enormous labor and skill necessary for construction? What symbolic meanings were encoded in their scale, placement, and design? And what knowledge, beliefs, or cultural practices have been lost, leaving only these enduring stone barriers to hint at the sophistication of their builders? As the afternoon sun casts long shadows over the fortified Acropolis, the walls seem to ask us to consider the dialogue between ambition, power, and mortality, between human creativity and the inexorable passage of time. Mycenae's Cyclopean walls remind us that monumental architecture is more than stone and mortar. It is a reflection of social vision, spiritual belief, and human ingenuity. Like other ancient structures we have explored, from Nemrut Dağ's summit terraces to Kuelap's sky-high fortifications, they challenge our understanding, evoke wonder, and preserve questions that may never be fully answered. Each block, each fitting, each carved relief is a fragment of a story waiting to be interpreted, a narrative suspended in time, asking observers to reflect on the limits of knowledge, the endurance of human aspiration, and the mysteries that remain encoded in the very stones themselves. Leaving behind the Cyclopean fortifications of Mycenae, where massive stones testify to the ambitions and ingenuity of a Bronze Age civilization, our journey turns once again across continents, descending from the rugged hills of Greece to the Andean highlands of Peru. Nestled in a fertile valley at an altitude of roughly 3,180 meters, the archaeological complex of Chavín de Huántar emerges, its stone terraces, underground galleries, and carved sculptures hinting at a civilization whose influence and ingenuity remain only partially understood. Unlike Mycenae, where the Cyclopean walls define defense and status, Chavín de Huántar is a spiritual and ceremonial nexus, a place where architecture, art, and landscape converge to produce a landscape steeped in mystery and ritual. From a distance, the site blends seamlessly with its mountainous surroundings, yet, as one approaches, the sophistication of human design becomes apparent. Terraces, plazas, and platforms are arranged with remarkable precision, accommodating both the natural topography and the ceremonial needs of the Chavín culture. At the center lies the monumental temple complex, composed of stone platforms and walls intricately carved with iconography depicting feline, serpent, and avian motifs. These images, often fused into hybrid creatures, convey a sense of power and transformation, inviting observers to consider the spiritual worldview that underpinned their creation. What beliefs inspired such artistry? And how did the Chavín conceptualize a cosmos that merged human, animal, and divine forms in a single visual language? One of the most enigmatic features of Chavín de Huántar is its network of subterranean galleries and tunnels, designed with precision to carry water and possibly sound. Running beneath the temple complex are channels that convey water from nearby rivers, but some researchers suggest these passages may have served ritualistic purposes as well, amplifying the roar of water or the chants of priests. Could these galleries have been designed to create auditory experiences that enhanced spiritual ceremonies, transforming ordinary sound into a profound, almost supernatural presence? And if so, what knowledge of hydraulics, acoustics, and ritual choreography did the builders possess that allowed them to orchestrate these experiences millennia before the scientific principles were formally understood? The construction of Chavín de Huántar reflects remarkable technical skill and planning. Massive limestone blocks form walls and terraces, some carved with abstract patterns or anthropomorphic faces, known as tenon heads. The precision of the stonework, particularly in the placement of reliefs and the shaping of platforms, indicates a sophisticated understanding of geometry and stability. How was labor organized to accomplish such feats in the high-altitude Andes? Were there specialized artisans, or did communal participation transmit knowledge across generations? And how did the builders coordinate the symbolic, functional, and aesthetic aspects of construction, ensuring that every element of the complex served multiple purposes simultaneously? The site's iconography is particularly compelling. Carved stone heads, both integrated into walls and freestanding, depict fierce expressions that combine human and animal features. Jaguars, snakes, and condors appear repeatedly, often fused with human forms, suggesting a cosmology in which the boundaries between natural and supernatural realms are fluid. Some scholars argue that these images reflect shamanic visions, ritual initiations, or altered states of consciousness induced by sacred substances. Others suggest that the motifs encode political or religious hierarchies, communicating authority and divine sanction to the wider Chavín community. Yet, despite decades of study, the meaning of many carvings remains elusive, a silent language whose grammar and syntax have been partially lost to time. Equally enigmatic is the alignment and orientation of Chavín de Huántar. The site appears carefully positioned in relation to surrounding rivers, valleys, and mountains, suggesting an intentional integration of natural and built environments. Some researchers propose that solar and lunar events were observed from specific terraces, while others note that the flow of water through the galleries may have been timed to correspond with seasonal cycles. Could Chavín de Huántar have functioned as an early observatory, a ceremonial calendar, or a cosmological map etched into the landscape itself? The combination of astronomy, architecture, and hydraulics implies a society with a nuanced understanding of both environment and ritual, yet the exact purposes remain speculative. The social and spiritual context of the site is equally compelling. Chavín de Huántar is not simply an architectural achievement. It is a stage for human experience, a space designed to engage senses, emotions, and beliefs. Pilgrims likely traveled from distant regions to participate in rituals, ceremonies, or initiatory practices, entering the temple complex to witness, hear, and perhaps even participate in transformative experiences orchestrated by priests. How were these rituals conducted? What knowledge, passed orally or encoded in stone, guided participants through ceremonies that connected them with the divine? And what aspects of the Chavín worldview, encoded in imagery, architecture, and sound, remain beyond our comprehension? The interplay of permanence and impermanence at Chavín de Huántar is striking. Stone platforms and carved reliefs endure, yet the rituals, beliefs, and human experiences that gave the site meaning are largely lost. Like the Cyclopean walls of Mycenae, Nemrut Dağ's terraces, or Kuelap's cloud-shrouded fortifications, Chavín de Huántar occupies a liminal space between documentation and mystery. The architecture, while tangible, is inseparable from the intangible, the ceremonies, social structures, and spiritual concepts that defined its use. Each terrace, gallery, and carved motif invites contemplation. What knowledge, what practices, and what beliefs have vanished with time, leaving only stone as witness? The construction methods of Chavín de Huántar continue to puzzle archaeologists. Some terraces appear to be precisely leveled despite the natural slope of the valley, while underground galleries demonstrate advanced techniques in stone cutting, water management, and spatial organization. Did the builders employ simple but highly effective tools, or were their techniques and methods now lost to history? And how did they transmit such specialized knowledge without written language, relying instead on apprenticeship, ritual instruction, or oral tradition? The enduring stability and intricacy of the site suggest a highly coordinated society capable of integrating technical skill with spiritual vision. Standing amid the terraces, reliefs, and subterranean galleries of Chavín de Huántar, one is struck by both achievement and mystery. The site embodies human creativity, engineering, artistry, and spirituality, yet it resists definitive interpretation. Its creators remain largely anonymous, their rituals partially reconstructed, their beliefs partially inferred. What drove them to create such a complex and sophisticated ceremonial center? How did they perceive their relationship with the natural world, the cosmos, and the unseen forces they sought to honor? And how much remains hidden, preserved in subtle alignments, forgotten symbols, or underground passages, awaiting discovery? Chavín de Huántar, in its enduring stones and labyrinthine galleries, stands as a testament to the ingenuity, imagination, and spiritual depth of an ancient Andean culture. Like Mycenae's Cyclopean walls, Nemrut Dağ, Kuelap, and Tarxien Temples, it challenges our understanding, evokes awe, and preserves questions that may never be fully answered. Each carved head, each terrace, and each subterranean channel invites reflection. What knowledge, practices, and spiritual insights are encoded in this complex? And what remains just beyond our grasp, waiting for patient observation, careful study, and the imagination to envision a world that has long since passed into history, leaving the subterranean galleries and ceremonial terraces of Chavín de Huántar behind, where water, stone, and ritual intertwined to shape an enduring spiritual landscape. Our journey moves further south into the high Andean plateau of Peru, toward the shores of Lake Umayo. Here, rising above the lake's still waters, stand the Sillustani Chullpas, towering cylindrical burial structures crafted from massive stones, their presence both solemn and enigmatic. Unlike the ceremonial centers of Chavín or the defensive Cyclopean walls of Mycenae, Sillustani presents a landscape of memory and mortality, where the architecture itself becomes a vessel for reverence, identity, and mystery. From a distance, the Chullpas resemble sentinels standing guard over the rolling plains and the lake below. Each tower, sometimes reaching heights of up to 12 meters, is constructed with carefully fitted stones, many of which are shaped with remarkable precision. The largest and most intricate, known as the Qolla Chullpa, dominates the site, its stones so perfectly joined that no mortar was necessary to hold them in place. The skill required to quarry, transport, and assemble these monolithic blocks raises immediate questions. How did the builders manipulate such immense stones atop uneven terrain? What techniques allowed for the circular precision and the enduring stability of structures that have withstood centuries of wind, rain, and seismic activity? As one approaches the Chullpas, their function becomes apparent, yet their symbolism remains elusive. These were tombs, intended to house the remains of elite members of the Qolla people, a pre-Inca culture whose influence extended across the region. Yet the design of the towers suggests more than a simple burial purpose. Many Chullpas feature narrow, high entrances, oriented toward the rising sun or specific landscape features, hinting at a cosmological or spiritual significance. Could these orientations have facilitated communication between the living and the dead, connecting human life to celestial patterns? And how did these alignments reflect the Chullpas' understanding of life, death, and the cycles of nature? The interiors of the towers, while often empty now, once contained mummified remains, grave goods, and offerings. Their cylindrical form, tapering toward the top, creates a sense of ascension, perhaps symbolizing the soul's journey toward the heavens. Archaeologists note that the construction techniques, including precisely placed stones and interlocking blocks, suggest a knowledge of both structural engineering and symbolic architecture. Yet, much remains unknown. How were the mummies prepared and what rituals accompanied their interment? Were these towers solely reserved for elites, or did they serve a communal or spiritual function extending beyond social hierarchy? The answers remain obscured by time, inviting speculation as much as analysis. The landscape itself seems deliberately intertwined with the Chullpas. Perched on rocky promontories and overlooking Lake Umayo, the towers interact with their environment in ways that suggest intentionality. From certain angles, the towers align with distant mountains, valleys, or watercourses, creating visual connections that could have had spiritual, ceremonial, or practical significance. Were these alignments purely symbolic, or did they play a role in guiding ritual activity, marking territorial boundaries, or coordinating seasonal cycles? The interplay between architecture and landscape reflects a society attuned to both the physical and metaphysical dimensions of their world, yet the precise intentions remain enigmatic. The construction of Sillustani Chullpas also demonstrates the social and technical sophistication of the Qala culture. Moving and shaping stones of such magnitude required coordinated labor, specialized skill, and long-term planning. Did teams of builders use ramps, levers, or scaffolding to position each stone? Were there master masons overseeing construction, or did communal knowledge transmit through apprenticeship and observation? The enduring stability of these towers, their circular elegance, and their precise stonework suggest a culture capable of marrying practicality with symbolism, producing structures that are at once functional, ceremonial, and aesthetically compelling. Equally compelling is the cultural and spiritual context of Sillustani. The Chullpas are not merely tombs. They are monuments to lineage, authority, and the interconnection of the living and the dead. Some scholars suggest that ceremonies involving the Chullpas may have reinforced social cohesion, asserting the power of elite families while connecting the community to cycles of nature and ancestry. Others propose that the structures encoded cosmological knowledge, aligning with celestial events or symbolizing metaphysical beliefs about life, death, and the afterlife. The absence of written records leaves interpretation incomplete, yet the presence of these towering stone markers communicates intention, reverence, and a sophisticated worldview. Walking among the Chullpas, the visitor is struck by their solemnity and scale. Each cylindrical tower casts long shadows across the plains, creating a sense of permanence and continuity, yet also a poignant reminder of human mortality. The meticulous stonework, the careful placement of each tower, and the orientation toward the landscape suggest a culture deeply concerned with memory, identity, and the afterlife. How did the Qala conceptualize the relationship between the living and the dead? And what rituals, knowledge, or spiritual practices remain hidden, encoded in stone, or lost entirely to time? Sillustani also raises questions about cultural transmission and influence. The Chullpas predate Inca domination, yet similar burial practices can be observed in later Andean cultures, suggesting a continuity or adaptation of ideas about death, commemoration, and monumental architecture. How did these ideas evolve over centuries, and what knowledge was preserved, transformed, or forgotten? And what does Sillustani reveal about the ability of ancient societies to integrate engineering, ritual, and landscape into cohesive, enduring expressions of identity and belief? Standing atop the rocky promontories overlooking Lake Umayo, one is confronted with both the tangible and the intangible, the impressive stonework of the Chullpas, and the profound mystery of the people who built them, their rituals, and their beliefs. Like Chavín de Huántar, Mycenae, or Kuelap, Sillustani embodies human ingenuity, artistic vision, and social sophistication, while simultaneously withholding full understanding. Each stone, each cylindrical form, each alignment with the landscape invites reflection. What knowledge, what spiritual insight, and what cultural memory have been encoded here? And how much remains beyond our reach, waiting to reveal itself only to those willing to observe, study, and imagine the world as its builders once did? Sillustani Chullpas, in their austere elegance and enduring presence, remind us that architecture can serve as both vessel and message, preserving human intention while simultaneously provoking questions that resist simple answers. These towers, weathered by centuries yet resilient against time, stand as silent witnesses to a civilization whose worldview, technical mastery, and spiritual ambition continue to inspire curiosity. As the wind whispers across the plains and the lake mirrors the sky above, one is left with a single compelling thought. What further stories, beliefs, and hidden knowledge might lie encoded within these ancient stones, waiting for discovery? Leaving behind the austere, cylindrical Chullpas of Sillustani, rising above Lake Umayo and echoing with the memory of the Kola people, our exploration turns once more across continents and climates, this time to the rolling moorlands of Cornwall in southwestern England. Here, amid windswept fields and low granite hills, stands the Merry Maidens, a remarkable stone circle that has captured the imagination of archaeologists, historians, and local folklore alike. Unlike the funerary towers of Sillustani or the subterranean galleries of Chavín de Huántar, the Merry Maidens are open to sky and landscape, their circular arrangement suggesting both ritual significance and careful astronomical or ceremonial observation. From a distance, the circle appears deceptively simple: 19 granite stones, each roughly 1 to 2 meters high, arranged in a near-perfect circle upon the heath. Yet, the precision and placement of these stones immediately provoke curiosity. How were these massive granite blocks transported from nearby outcrops, and how did Bronze Age communities coordinate their alignment across uneven terrain? Unlike the monumental walls of Mycenae or the tumulus terraces of Nemrut Dağ, the stones of Merry Maidens appear to have been positioned with both spatial and symbolic intention, their circular formation inviting both observation and participation. Could this geometry have been guided by ritual, cosmology, or early astronomical knowledge? The stones themselves are weathered but resolute, each one a silent witness to millennia of wind, rain, and human presence. In local folklore, the Merry Maidens are said to represent young women turned to stone for dancing on the Sabbath, an image that connects the site to a deep cultural imagination of morality, myth, and memory. Yet beyond myth, the archaeological significance of the circle is profound. Evidence suggests it dates to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, a period when communities across Britain were constructing megalithic monuments with increasingly complex social, ceremonial, and astronomical purposes. But what precisely did the builders intend? Was this circle an observatory, a ceremonial gathering place, a marker of seasonal change, or all of these simultaneously? Approaching the circle, one notices more than just the stones themselves. The surrounding landscape is subtly integrated into the design. Nearby mounds, smaller stone settings, and pathways hint at a broader ritual landscape where movement and perspective may have held meaning. Some researchers argue that the circle aligns with significant solar or lunar events, suggesting an understanding of celestial cycles and the passing of time. Could the Merry Maidens have functioned as a kind of calendar, marking solstices or equinoxes, guiding agricultural or ceremonial activities, or connecting human activity with the cosmos? And if so, how much of this knowledge was encoded orally, passed down through generations without the aid of written records? The construction techniques are equally compelling. Moving granite stones weighing several tons with limited technology would have required ingenuity, collaboration, and careful planning. Were levers, wooden rollers, or rope systems employed? How did Bronze Age communities ensure the stone's stability in a circle that has survived thousands of years of erosion and human interference? Each possibility speaks to a remarkable technical and social organization, a community capable of integrating practical skills with symbolic ambition. And yet, the absence of written records leaves the full story tantalizingly incomplete, open to interpretation and wonder. The circle also invites speculation about its social and ceremonial dimensions. Stone circles in Britain are often associated with communal gathering, ritual observance, and perhaps even trance or shamanic practices. Did the Merry Maidens serve as a stage for seasonal festivals, initiations, or ancestral worship? Were participants guided by the movements of the sun, moon, or stars, entering into a choreography of ritual movement, rhythm, and sound? Or was the circle primarily a symbolic statement, a territorial marker that asserted social cohesion, authority, or cosmological understanding within the community? The ambiguity invites reflection, allowing the site to function simultaneously as monument, calendar, and spiritual locus. The surrounding landscape enhances the sense of mystery. Rolling hills, distant tors, and valleys create sight lines that may have been intentionally incorporated into the circle's orientation. Observers approaching from specific angles experience subtle shifts in perspective, as though the stones themselves guide attention to particular features of the land or sky. Could these alignments have had ritual significance, creating a dialogue between human activity and natural observation? And to what extent did the builders intend for this interaction to be experienced consciously, or as part of an orchestrated ritual for initiates and participants? The mythological associations of the Merry Maidens add further layers of depth. Stories of women transformed to stone for dancing on sacred days, and nearby folklore of related stone settings, such as the Pipers, suggest that this landscape was imagined as alive with moral, spiritual, and narrative resonance. Yet these stories, though often centuries later, may preserve echoes of the site's original ceremonial purpose, blending human imagination with archaeological reality. What did the original builders see in this landscape? How did they conceptualize the stone's power, their presence across time, and their relationship to human life and death, ritual and memory? The enduring mystery of the Merry Maidens is amplified by their simplicity and subtlety. Unlike the monumental engineering of Kuelap, Mycenae, or Nemrut Dağ, the circle's elegance is understated, relying on spatial geometry, placement, and context rather than massive walls or colossal statues. Each stone is carefully chosen, positioned, and aligned, yet its meaning remains partly hidden, dependent on a cultural logic that may no longer be fully accessible. What knowledge guided the placement of each stone, and what practices were intended for those who entered the circle? And perhaps most compellingly, what has been lost to time, the chants, the movements, the social and ritual memory that allowed the site to function as a living center of communal experience? Standing within the circle today, amid wind and weather, one feels both intimacy and vastness. The stones create a rhythm and enclosure, while the surrounding landscape opens perspectives to horizon, sky, and distant hills. The merry maidens, in their quiet grandeur, echo with human intention, technical skill, and spiritual aspiration. Like Sillustani, Chavín de Huántar, and the Cyclopean walls of Mycenae, the site embodies both achievement and enigma, leaving questions as persistent as the stones themselves. How did Bronze Age communities perceive their world? How did they integrate ritual, landscape, and astronomy into a coherent vision of existence? And what further mysteries remain encoded in this circle, waiting for the careful eye and patient imagination to uncover them? The merry maidens, in their enduring presence, remind us that human engagement with stone, landscape, and ritual transcends time and geography. From the high Andes to the Cornish moors, ancient societies sought to encode belief, authority, and cosmology into monuments that could endure centuries. And yet, each site, whether a chulpa, a temple, a fortress, or a circle, keeps part of its story just out of reach, challenging modern observers to reflect, wonder, and speculate. As the wind sweeps across the moor and the horizon stretches in every direction, the stones of the merry maidens seem to whisper a question still unanswered. What deeper truths about human creativity, spirituality, and our relationship with the cosmos remain hidden, waiting silently within these ancient circles? Leaving behind the wind-swept moors of Cornwall, where the merry maiden circle stands as a testament to Bronze Age ingenuity and ritual imagination, our journey takes us to the ancient Levant, to the site of Jericho, one of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in human history. Nestled in the fertile Jordan Valley, amid arid hills and winding wadis, stands the remnants of the Jericho Stone Tower, a circular stone structure dating back more than 10,000 years. Unlike the open-air ceremonial circles of Britain or the funerary chulpas of Peru, this tower is enigmatic both in its purpose and its place within the earliest known urban landscapes, a relic of a society transitioning from foraging to sedentary life. From a distance, the tower appears deceptively simple. A roughly circular stone construction, standing some 8 meters high with a diameter of nearly 9 meters. The stones are carefully stacked and mortared in a rudimentary yet effective arrangement, forming a structure that has endured millennia of exposure. Its height, scale, and positioning immediately raise questions about its intended function. How did a community in the pre-pottery Neolithic period, with limited tools and organization, manage to construct a tower of such magnitude and stability? Was it primarily defensive, ceremonial, or perhaps a marker of social identity and collective effort? And what does its very presence reveal about the ambitions and capabilities of early urban societies? Approaching the tower, the construction methods become apparent, yet also provoke intrigue. The lower stones are significantly larger and more precisely fitted, suggesting careful planning and an understanding of load-bearing principles. Some stones weigh several tons, and their transport, placement, and alignment imply both communal coordination and sophisticated problem-solving. Could this level of engineering represent an early experimentation with architectural stability, or does it suggest knowledge passed through generations that we have yet to fully reconstruct? The tower, in its solidity and endurance, speaks to human ingenuity at a time when settled communities were only beginning to explore permanent structures. The tower's purpose, however, remains a topic of debate. Some archaeologists posit that it served as a defensive structure, perhaps to guard against seasonal flooding or hostile neighbors, while others argue for a more symbolic or ritual function. Its circular design, its height above the surrounding settlement, and its proximity to other monumental constructions, such as walls and platforms at Jericho, suggest that it may have been part of a larger urban plan, integrating defense, visibility, and social cohesion. Could it have been a watchtower, a community marker, or even an astronomical observatory, aligned with celestial events to track seasons or signal agricultural cycles? The lack of direct records leaves the tower's original intent tantalizingly uncertain. Archaeological excavations reveal additional mysteries. The tower is part of a larger complex, incorporating a thick defensive wall that encircled the settlement and a deep ditch or moat. These features imply that the inhabitants were concerned with protection and territorial demarcation, yet the scale and effort required suggest more than mere pragmatism. Was the tower a symbol of collective identity, asserting the community's permanence in a rapidly changing environment? And how did such monumental construction impact social organization? Were laborers coordinated by hierarchical authority, communal decision-making, or a combination of both? The tower's age further deepens its enigma. At over 11,000 years old, it predates the invention of metal tools, wheels, and wheeled transport. How were stones of such size quarried, transported, and fitted without these technologies? Did the builders rely on earthen ramps, simple levers, or other ingenious techniques now lost to time? And what does this reveal about the intellectual and social capabilities of early Neolithic societies, often assumed to be limited to subsistence-level organization? The Jericho stone tower challenges these assumptions, forcing a reconsideration of the complexity of prehistoric human life. Beyond its construction, the tower's placement within the landscape invites contemplation. Situated on an elevated mound, it dominates views of the surrounding valley, the seasonal floodplains of the Jordan River, and distant hills. Its position suggests a deliberate choice, perhaps for visibility, territorial signaling, or connection to natural and celestial phenomena. Could the tower have served as a communal focal point, aligning the settlement physically and socially around a central, elevated landmark? And if so, how did its visibility shape human interaction, ritual behavior, and the perception of power within the early urban community? The symbolic dimensions of the tower are equally compelling. Some researchers speculate that it may have had ceremonial significance, functioning as a site for communal gatherings, seasonal rites, or observances related to agriculture and fertility. Its circular form, a shape repeated in other contemporary Neolithic sites, may reflect cosmological or symbolic thinking, representing cycles, unity, or the connection between earth and sky. Did the tower act as a bridge between practical and spiritual concerns, linking defense, observation, and ritual in a single monumental structure? Or was its meaning more fluid, evolving over time as the settlement grew and adapted? Standing beside the tower today, amid the dry wind of the Jordan Valley and the surrounding archaeological remnants, one is struck by both its physical presence and the mysteries it embodies. Unlike later constructions, whose purposes may be more evident, the Jericho stone tower resists easy categorization. It invites reflection on human ingenuity, ambition, and the desire to shape the world in lasting form. Each stone, carefully placed millennia ago, embodies a combination of skill, planning, and intention that continues to provoke questions. How did the builders conceptualize permanence and protection? What knowledge, now partially lost, guided their choices in construction and placement? And how did this early experiment in monumental architecture influence subsequent generations and the evolution of urban planning? The tower also raises questions about the nature of human community and social organization in the earliest settlements. Its construction implies coordinated labor, planning, and shared purpose, suggesting a degree of social complexity often underestimated in prehistoric studies. Was this society governed by a centralized authority, or did communal consensus guide monumental projects? And how did the tower contribute to identity, memory, and cohesion within a fledgling urban landscape, where permanence and protection were both practical and symbolic concerns? In its enduring stones, the Jericho stone tower preserves both achievement and enigma. Like the Merry Maidens, Sillustani Chullpas, Chavín de Huántar, and Mycenae's Cyclopean walls. It bridges the tangible and the intangible, the practical and the symbolic. Each aspect, the size of the stones, the precision of placement, the circular form, and the elevated position, speaks to human ambition and ingenuity. Yet the original purpose remains open to interpretation. It is a monument to both human capability and mystery, an invitation to contemplate the lives, knowledge, and imagination of those who first sought to build permanence in a changing world. The Jericho stone tower, in its silent, ancient presence, reminds us that monumental architecture is never purely functional. It carries meaning, intention, and reflection across millennia. As we stand in its shadow, contemplating the efforts of a community that lived thousands of years before written history, we are left with enduring questions. What motivated the builders to undertake such an ambitious project? How did they coordinate knowledge, labor, and vision without modern technology? And what other insights, encoded in stone, might still lie hidden beneath the sands and soil of Jericho, waiting to illuminate the ingenuity of our earliest urban ancestors? Leaving the ancient Tower of Jericho behind, where early human ambition first etched permanence into the landscape, our journey now carries us across continents and oceans to the tropical lowlands of Veracruz, Mexico. Here, amid the lush greenery and fertile plains shaped by the nearby Coatzacoalcos River, lie the stone circles of Cempoala, an archaeological site that whispers of a culture both complex and mysterious. Unlike the solitary Tower of Jericho or the windswept Merry Maidens of Cornwall, Cempoala presents a sprawling ceremonial center where stone circles, platforms, and plazas intertwine with the rhythms of the land, hinting at rituals, cosmology, and social organization now largely lost to time. From a distance, the stone circles of Cempoala emerge subtly from the terrain, often partially obscured by vegetation. Yet their geometry becomes evident as one approaches. The circles are composed of carefully arranged stones forming distinct concentric patterns, some measuring several meters in diameter. Each circle seems deliberate, as if designed to guide movement, frame visibility, or mark sacred space. How did the builders decide upon the location, size, and orientation of each circle? Were they aligned with celestial events, hydrological patterns, or landscape features? Or did their design follow symbolic principles now indecipherable to modern eyes? The craftsmanship of the stones themselves evokes both admiration and curiosity. Many are rounded, weathered, or smoothed, yet their placement demonstrates an understanding of symmetry, proportion, and spatial relationships. Unlike large-scale constructions such as the Jericho stone tower or the Cyclopean walls of Mycenae, the Cempoala circles rely on subtlety and repetition rather than sheer mass, creating an environment that is simultaneously intimate and ceremonial. Could these structures have served as stages for ritual dances, offerings, or processions, where participants moved in harmony with symbolic geometry and social hierarchy? And if so, what knowledge of social coordination, ritual choreography, and symbolic meaning guided these ancient builders? Archaeological evidence suggests that Cempoala was a thriving center during the post-classic period of Mesoamerican history, occupied by Totonac peoples long before the arrival of the Spanish. The stone circles are often situated near ceremonial platforms, ball courts, and altars, implying that they were integrated into complex social and religious networks. Their proximity to watercourses and fertile land hints at an intimate connection between spiritual practice and environmental management. Did these circles function as more than ceremonial markers, perhaps guiding agricultural cycles, seasonal festivals, or communal gatherings? And how much of their intended function remains obscured because the social and cosmological context of the Totonac civilization has been partially erased by time? The layout of the site further suggests intentionality. Stone circles are rarely isolated. They interact with plazas, mounds, and ceremonial axes, creating a network of spaces that may have guided movement, sightlines, or ritual sequences. Some researchers propose that the circles represent cosmological models, mapping celestial events or embodying sacred numbers and patterns. Could these arrangements encode knowledge of solar or lunar cycles, or perhaps serve as mnemonic devices for priests and shamans performing rituals? And if so, what principles guided the integration of astronomy, ritual, and landscape in a coherent system that remains only partially understood today? The ritual significance of the stone circles is further suggested by iconography, carvings, and associated artifacts found at the site. Figurines, ceramics, and symbolic objects imply offerings and ceremonial activity, yet the circles themselves remain enigmatic. Were they stages for performance, spaces for meditation, or markers for collective memory? Perhaps all of these simultaneously. The very simplicity of the circles, a minimalistic arrangement of stones, invites reflection, suggesting that ritual power did not depend on monumental scale but on placement, orientation, and the lived experience of participants. What energies, beliefs, or spiritual practices were embedded in these modest yet precise constructions? How did participants perceive their relationship to the stones, the land, and the unseen forces that guided their rituals? Walking among the circles, one senses both order and mystery. The stones are unyielding, yet their arrangement speaks of intention, rhythm, and communal vision. Like the Jericho stone tower, Mary Maidens, and Sillustani Chullpas, the stone circles of Cempoala occupy the liminal space between human mastery and mystery, between observable fact and interpretive imagination. Each circle embodies the interaction of labor, belief, and social cohesion, preserving echoes of practices, cosmology, and social organization that shaped the lives of those who built them. How did ancient communities transmit knowledge about these sacred spaces, ensuring consistency, meaning, and function across generations? And what remains hidden in the stones themselves? Encoded patterns, lost rituals, or symbolic principles waiting to be rediscovered? Cempoala's stone circles, in their quiet precision and subtle geometry, remind us that monumental expression need not rely on size alone. Power, memory, and spiritual resonance can emerge from careful arrangement, alignment, and communal engagement. Like other ancient structures we have explored, from the Cyclopean walls of Mycenae to the Chullpas of Sillustani, they challenge modern observers to reflect on the sophistication of early civilizations, their understanding of space, time, and cosmology, and their capacity to create structures that endure not only physically, but conceptually. As the sun sets over the verdant plains of Veracruz, casting long shadows across the stones, one is left with the same enduring question that accompanies all great ancient monuments. What knowledge, belief, and human experience has been encoded in these circles, and how much remains concealed, waiting for the patient observer to uncover the deeper truths embedded in this landscape? The Mary Maidens, Jericho Tower, and now the stone circles of Cempoala together form a chain of human aspiration, ingenuity, and mystery, a testament to our enduring desire to shape the world, mark our presence, and reach toward the unseen, leaving the tropical plains and ceremonial stone circles of Cempoala behind, where ritual geometry and communal gathering once shaped human perception. We journey back to the towering Andes, where the Vilcabamba stone complex rises in dramatic isolation amid steep mountain ridges, dense cloud forests, and winding rivers. Unlike the open plains of Veracruz or the carefully aligned stones of Jericho and Cornwall, Vilcabamba is concealed, almost deliberately hidden, a network of terraces, walls, and stone constructions clinging to precipitous slopes. It evokes both awe and unease, a place where the human hand and natural topography intertwine in ways that defy easy explanation. From a distance, the Vilcabamba complex appears as a scatter of stone terraces and platforms, partially swallowed by the mist that constantly drifts along the Andean valleys. Yet, as one moves closer, the precision of construction becomes evident. Massive stones, carefully shaped and fitted without mortar, form terraces that follow the contours of the mountainside with remarkable exactitude. Stairways carve paths up the slopes, while walls rise seamlessly from the rocky soil, sometimes creating multi-tiered enclosures or geometric patterns that are visible only when viewed from specific vantage points. How did the builders manage such feats in terrain so steep and remote? And what knowledge of balance, weight distribution, and terrain manipulation guided their work? Vilcabamba is best known as the last stronghold of the Inca resistance against Spanish conquest, yet the origins of the stone constructions likely predate that tumultuous period. The site encompasses ceremonial spaces, living areas, and agricultural terraces, suggesting a sophisticated integration of habitation, defense, and spiritual activity. Some terraces appear aligned with distant peaks or river confluences, hinting at deliberate orientation within the broader landscape. Could these alignments have served ritual, cosmological, or even astronomical purposes? Or were they primarily practical, designed to maximize sunlight, irrigation, or agricultural productivity in the steep, cloud-laden valleys? The interplay between practicality and symbolism remains an open question, as elusive as the mists that envelop the mountains. The stones themselves provoke curiosity. Many are enormous, carefully shaped and fitted together with extraordinary precision, sometimes forming walls with polygons that interlock so tightly that it is impossible to insert even a knife blade between them. This technique, reminiscent of the masonry seen in Machu Picchu or Ollantaytambo, raises questions about construction methods. How did pre-industrial societies move stones weighing several tons up steep inclines without modern equipment? Did they employ ramps, ropes, levers, or techniques now lost to time? And beyond mere construction, how did they achieve such precision in stone shaping, ensuring stability and endurance in an earthquake-prone region? The layout of Vilcabamba also hints at social and ritual complexity. Certain platforms and terraces seem to be designed for gatherings, while smaller enclosures could have housed specialized activities or elites. Some archaeologists propose that specific terraces may have functioned as observatories, aligning with solstices or other celestial events, while others suggest the entire complex was conceived as a microcosm, reflecting Inca cosmology in miniature, with mountains, rivers, and constructed elements forming symbolic analogues to sacred landscapes. If this were the case, what principles guided the builders in encoding cosmological, social, and environmental knowledge into stone? And how much of that knowledge has been lost, leaving only stone as a silent witness to human ingenuity and belief? The interplay between visibility and concealment at Vilcabamba is particularly striking. From certain angles, terraces and walls seem almost to disappear into the mountainside, while from others, the geometric patterns and monumental scale become clear. This suggests an understanding of perspective, perhaps intended to control how the site was experienced by inhabitants, visitors, or enemies. Could such visual design have had symbolic or ritual significance, shaping the perception of power, sanctity, or the natural world? And how did the builders conceptualize these interactions between structure, observer, and landscape without formalized scientific tools? The site's function as a last refuge for the Inca adds layers of historical and symbolic intrigue. While much of Vilcabamba's construction predates this period, its strategic location, steep slopes, and terraces suggest that the choice of site was influenced by defense and concealment. Could the original builders have also recognized the defensive potential of the terrain, merging spiritual, social, and military considerations into a single architectural vision? And how did successive generations adapt, expand, or reinterpret the space, layering meanings and functions over centuries? Vilcabamba's integration of water and agriculture further demonstrates advanced planning. Terraces are arranged to manage runoff, prevent erosion, and optimize irrigation, while retaining walls demonstrate an understanding of hydraulic engineering. Streams are channeled along precise courses, and natural springs are incorporated into terraces and plazas. This integration of environmental management with monumental construction raises questions about the relationship between survival, ritual, and architectural expression. Was water management primarily functional, symbolic, or both? Did terraces encode knowledge of seasonal cycles, fertility, or sacred flows of energy, blending practicality and spirituality in ways that modern observers struggle to fully comprehend? The spiritual dimension of Vilcabamba is perhaps its most elusive yet compelling aspect. Certain enclosures and terraces appear intentionally isolated, perhaps serving as ritual spaces, initiatory chambers, or places of meditation and communion with the natural and divine. Carvings and stone arrangements suggest symbolic intent, while the placement of terraces and walls in relation to surrounding mountains may reflect a cosmological vision, linking human activity to sacred geography. How did the builders conceptualize the invisible forces they sought to honor or channel? And how did these spaces shape the social, spiritual, and cultural identity of the people who lived here, especially during periods of crisis, conflict, or ritual observance? The scale, precision, and location of Vilcabamba suggest a society with both technical mastery and spiritual ambition. Yet, despite extensive study, many questions remain unanswered. How were labor and resources coordinated in such a challenging environment? How did builders conceive of and execute multi-tiered constructions without formal surveying tools? And how did the site's design reflect and reinforce social hierarchy, cosmology, and ritual practice? Unlike open plains or coastal settlements, Vilcabamba's cloud-shrouded ridges create a sense of intimacy and concealment, emphasizing the human capacity to manipulate and harmonize with dramatic natural landscapes. Walking through the terraces, stairways, and enclosures of Vilcabamba, one senses both the tangible and intangible dimensions of human ingenuity. Stone, earth, and slope form a coherent, enduring system, yet the intentions behind these arrangements remain partly hidden. Like the Cempoala stone circles, the Jericho stone tower, or Sillustani Chullpas, Vilcabamba embodies human skill, social organization, and spiritual aspiration, while simultaneously guarding its mysteries. What rituals unfolded upon these terraces? What knowledge was transmitted through the arrangement of stones, the orientation of walls, and the flow of water? And how did the people who built and inhabited this complex perceive the interplay of human effort, natural forces, and the sacred? Vilcabamba's enduring presence is a testament to the fusion of human ambition, environmental adaptation, and spiritual imagination. Its terraces, walls, and platforms continue to inspire curiosity, reminding us that ancient societies were capable of integrating engineering, ritual, and landscape into monumental expressions of identity and belief. And yet, the complex resists full understanding, preserving questions that echo across time. What knowledge, skill, and intention guided the creation of this hidden Andean stronghold? How much remains encoded in its terraces, platforms, and stones, waiting for patient observation and imaginative insight? And perhaps most compellingly, what deeper truths about the relationship between humanity, landscape, and spirituality lie still concealed in the misty heights of Vilcabamba, waiting to reveal themselves to those who seek patiently and thoughtfully? From the hidden terraces and cloud-shrouded slopes of Vilcabamba, where ancient Andean builders melded stone, slope, and forest into an intricate network of terraces and platforms. Our journey descends toward the city of Cusco, the historic heart of the Inca Empire. Perched on a hill overlooking the city, yet still commanding the surrounding valleys with an imposing presence, lies Sacsayhuaman, one of the most extraordinary and enigmatic architectural feats of the pre-Columbian world. Unlike the subtle circles of Cempoala or the concealed terraces of Vilcabamba, Sacsayhuaman is a monumental expression of scale and precision, a fortress-like complex whose massive stones and zigzagging walls defy both gravity and explanation. Approaching Sacsayhuaman, the first impression is immediate. A dramatic series of terraces, walls, and platforms built from colossal stones, some weighing upwards of 200 tons. The sheer size and irregular shapes of these megaliths challenge comprehension, as if they were carved to fit each other with an almost organic intuition. The walls zigzag across the hilltop in massive, interlocking steps, forming three main terraces that descend toward Cusco like the vertebrae of some colossal, stone-limbed creature. How were such immense stones quarried, transported across rugged Andean terrain, and fitted with such precision without metal tools, pulleys, or wheeled transport? The questions arise immediately, and their answers remain elusive. The precision of the masonry is equally striking. Each stone seems to be shaped and placed with extraordinary care, the surfaces polished and the edges so tightly fitted that it is impossible to slip a blade between them. Irregular polygons are juxtaposed in ways that appear almost sculptural, resisting the simplistic assumption that the walls are merely functional. This technique, characteristic of Inca stonework, suggests not only advanced understanding of structural stability, but also a refined aesthetic sensibility. Was this mastery born purely of trial and experience, or did it reflect sophisticated, possibly ritualized knowledge transmitted through generations? Sacsayhuaman's scale and design also suggest a dual function, defensive and ceremonial. Spanish chroniclers described the site as a fortress, part of Cusco's defensive network, while archaeological studies indicate that its design also incorporated ritual spaces and astronomical alignments. Certain plazas and terraces are oriented in ways that correspond to solstices and equinoxes, suggesting the Inca integrated celestial observation into the construction. Could Sacsayhuaman have functioned as a sacred observatory, a ceremonial platform, or even a cosmological model of Inca knowledge? And if so, how was this dual purpose, practical defense and spiritual observance, encoded into the architecture so seamlessly? The transport of the stones remains a subject of fascination and debate. Quarrying the massive blocks, some over 200 tons, from sites located several kilometers away required ingenuity and coordination on a scale rarely documented in pre-industrial societies. Evidence suggests that laborers may have used ramps, levers, and sheer manpower, yet the full logistics are unclear. Did the Inca employ secret techniques now lost to time, or is there a missing element to our understanding of their engineering capabilities? The question underscores a broader mystery. How did an empire without wheels or iron tools achieve feats that modern engineers still regard with awe? Beyond construction, the spatial design of Sacsayhuaman reveals layers of symbolic and ritual significance. The zigzagging walls, terraces, and plazas may have encoded cosmological or socio-political knowledge, marking the Inca understanding of order, hierarchy, and the relationship between earth, sky, and human activity. Certain stones appear deliberately positioned to align with nearby mountains, rivers, or celestial phenomena, echoing patterns observed at Vilcabamba and other Andean sites. How did the Inca perceive and manipulate these alignments, integrating spiritual symbolism with practical construction? And how much of this knowledge was preserved orally, ritualized in collective memory rather than written record, leaving its interpretation partially lost to history. The fortress-like impression of Sacsayhuaman is complemented by its ceremonial spaces. Large plazas at the top of the terraces would have accommodated gatherings, festivals, and rituals of considerable scale. Chroniclers describe the Inti Raymi festival, celebrating the sun god, as involving elaborate ceremonies at the site, complete with processions, offerings, and symbolic enactments. Could the terraces themselves, with their massive stones and rhythmic steps, have guided movement, sightlines, or auditory resonance, shaping the experience of ritual participants? In what ways did architecture itself act as an agent of ritual, shaping perception, emotion, and social cohesion simultaneously? The design of Sacsayhuaman also evokes questions about social organization and labor. Constructing such a monumental complex would have required coordination of thousands of workers over years, if not decades. Was labor mobilized through conscription, communal cooperation, or a combination of both? How did the Inca ensure precision in stone shaping, placement, and alignment across such a massive scale? The project reflects not only technical and engineering skill, but also complex social, administrative, and perhaps spiritual systems capable of sustaining long-term, high-stakes architectural endeavors. Another layer of intrigue lies in the apparent perfection of the stone interlocking. Despite centuries of earthquakes, weathering, and human interference, the walls remain remarkably stable. The interlocking polygons and slight inclines suggest a deep understanding of seismic forces and structural dynamics. Did the Inca discover this empirically, refining methods through generations, or did they possess conceptual principles of architecture and engineering that have since been lost? The endurance of the walls suggests an extraordinary synthesis of observation, experimentation, and intuition, human insight manifested in stone. Sacsayhuaman also continues to provoke speculation due to anomalies and gaps in our understanding. Certain stones, unusually massive or irregular, seem almost to defy conventional explanation regarding movement and placement. Some scholars propose that advanced, now-lost techniques or tools may have been used, while others suggest that spiritual or symbolic imperatives guided their placement beyond mere practicality. Could the site encode knowledge that transcends physical construction, representing metaphysical or cosmological principles? And how does the site's relationship with Cusco, the surrounding mountains, and distant celestial markers reflect a broader vision of human existence, power, and spirituality? Walking among the terraces today, the scale of human endeavor is humbling. Each massive stone, each precise joint, each zigzagging wall testifies to vision, skill, and aspiration. Yet the full purpose remains partially hidden. Like Vilcabamba, Cempoala, and Jericho, Sacsayhuaman embodies both achievement and mystery, merging practical engineering, ritual significance, and social organization into an enduring architectural statement. What rituals were enacted on these terraces, and how did participants experience the interplay of stone, slope, and sky? How much knowledge of cosmology, symbolism, and social coordination was embedded in this fortress-temple complex, now largely encoded only in its stones? Sacsayhuaman also raises enduring questions about human creativity and ambition. Its scale, precision, and location reflect a civilization capable of integrating engineering, astronomy, ritual, and social cohesion in ways that continue to inspire modern observers. How did the Inca conceive of their relationship to the natural landscape, the cosmos, and the collective body of the city below? How much of the design reflects spiritual cosmology, and how much reflects political control and practical defense? And, perhaps most provocatively, how did they manage to construct such a seemingly impossible monument without the technologies we consider essential for large-scale building today? Standing amid the terraces, stairways, and walls of Sacsayhuaman, one senses a duality, the tangible presence of immense stones and the intangible presence of human intention, knowledge, and belief. The sight remains both comprehensible and enigmatic, a testament to skill and vision, yet resistant to complete interpretation. Like Vilcabamba, the Merry Maidens, or Cempoala, it bridges human achievement and enduring mystery. Each wall, each polygonal stone, each terrace challenges modern understanding while inviting reflection on the ingenuity, spirituality, and ambition of those who shaped the landscape with care, precision, and intent. Sacsayhuaman, in its grandeur and subtlety, reminds us that architecture can encode knowledge, belief, and social order simultaneously. It stands as a physical record of human aspiration, yet it also preserves questions that reach across centuries. How were the immense stones moved and fitted with such precision? How did the Inca perceive and manipulate space, ritual, and cosmology in the construction of this site? And what further truths, encoded in stone, remain hidden, waiting for the careful eye, patient thought, and imaginative inquiry of those who approach with curiosity and respect? Leaving the sunlit terraces and monumental stones of Sacsayhuaman, where Inca ingenuity fused ritual, defense, and cosmology into enduring megalithic forms, our journey carries us north, across continents and climates, to the windswept plains and rolling hills of the Tver region in western Russia. Here, amid dense forests, gentle river valleys, and open fields that seem timeless, stands the enigmatic Taverskoye Dolmen, a prehistoric stone structure that, like its counterparts across the globe, defies easy explanation. Unlike the grand fortresses of the Andes or the ceremonial circles of Mesoamerica, the dolmen is modest in scale but monumental in mystery, its unassuming stones whispering of rituals, beliefs, and capabilities now largely lost to time. From a distance, the Taverskoye Dolmen presents itself as a simple, rectangular stone chamber, topped by a massive horizontal capstone that appears almost impossibly balanced. Its stones, often granite or sandstone, are weathered and moss-covered, blending into the surrounding landscape, yet their geometry, carefully cut vertical supports and an enormous flat cap, reveals deliberate intent. How did the builders select, transport, and position stones weighing several tons with no machinery, no wheel, and only the simplest of tools? And why choose this particular location, often on elevated or visually prominent land, as if to command attention or mark sacred territory? The dolmen is striking for its precision and stability. Vertical orthostats support a single capstone in a configuration that has endured millennia of rain, frost, and occasional seismic activity. Archaeologists note that some stones bear subtle markings, grooves, or incisions that may reflect symbolic or functional intent. Were these marks purely practical, guiding placement and alignment? Or did they convey deeper meaning, perhaps serving as coded messages, ritual symbols, or celestial indicators? And if so, what knowledge of geometry, engineering, and symbolism was possessed by communities that left no written records? The interior of Taverskoye Dolmen adds another layer of intrigue. Within the chamber, excavations have revealed traces of human activity: charcoal, fragments of pottery, and occasionally skeletal remains. These discoveries suggest a ritual or funerary purpose, yet the precise nature of the ceremonies remains uncertain. Were these sites intended for burial, for ancestor veneration, for initiation rites, or for purposes that have eluded modern comprehension entirely? And what guided the decision to construct a stone chamber in this specific design, as opposed to other burial or ritual forms present elsewhere in Neolithic Europe? The architectural style of Taverskoye Dolmen is both simple and sophisticated. While outwardly unadorned, the precise fitting of massive stones, the alignment of entrances, and the spatial relationships within the chamber reveal a complex understanding of proportion and stability. How did these early societies conceptualize balance and weight distribution? Did they rely purely on trial and error? Or was there a more systematic knowledge, perhaps passed orally through generations, that guided the construction of enduring stone chambers? The answers remain elusive, hidden in the weathered surfaces and shadowed interiors of these ancient structures. The landscape surrounding the dolmen also invites reflection. Situated often on river terraces or near elevated ridges, Taverskoye dolmens interact with their environment in ways that suggest intentionality beyond mere practicality. The placement may have been determined by visual prominence, alignment with solar or lunar cycles, or the symbolic importance of rivers, hills, or valleys. Did the builders perceive these landscapes as sacred, and did the positioning of the stones amplify or harness natural energies for ritual purposes? And if so, what cosmological framework guided their choices, blending observation of the natural world with cultural and spiritual beliefs? In addition to placement, orientation remains a key area of speculation. Many dolmens are aligned in ways that suggest a connection to celestial phenomena: sunrise on solstices, the rising of particular stars, or lunar cycles. Could the Taverskoye Dolmen have served as an observatory, a calendar, or a ritual marker synchronized with the cosmos? And if these alignments were intentional, how was this knowledge developed and preserved in a pre-literate society, where empirical observation and symbolic meaning coexisted? The dolmen thus embodies both tangible engineering skill and intangible cultural wisdom. The labor required to construct the dolmen further underscores the ingenuity of its builders. Moving capstones and erecting orthostats in a pre-industrial society demanded coordinated effort, perhaps involving pulleys, sledges, ropes, or earthen ramps. But despite extensive experimentation by archaeologists, the exact methods remain speculative. Could there have been techniques now lost to time, passed down through generations and carefully guarded within ritual or communal knowledge? And if so, how much does each dolmen, its design, placement, and survival, preserve fragments of a technological understanding we are only beginning to glimpse? Beyond practical and celestial considerations, the Taverskoye Dolmen is saturated with symbolic potential. Its chambers evoke thresholds, portals, and boundaries between worlds, living and dead, human and divine, temporal and eternal. The simplicity of its form belies its conceptual sophistication. Did the builders perceive these spaces as conduits, where ritual practice enabled communication with ancestors, spirits, or cosmic forces? How did the act of constructing and entering the dolmen shape the social, spiritual, and emotional lives of those who used it? And what layers of meaning remain encoded in its stones, waiting to be interpreted by the patient observer? The dolmen also fits into a wider network of megalithic structures across Europe, from Brittany to the Caucasus, suggesting that the people of Taverskoye were part of a broader phenomenon of monumental stone construction in the Neolithic. Did these distant cultures share knowledge, inspiration, or symbolic frameworks, or did similar forms emerge independently in response to universal human concerns? Death, memory, ritual, and the desire to leave a lasting mark on the landscape? And what does this convergence of megalithic architecture reveal about the cognitive, social, and spiritual capacities of early human societies? Walking through the forested fields around Taverskoye Dolmen, one cannot escape the sense of time layered into stone. Moss and lichen soften the edges, yet the geometry, weight, and balance speak across millennia. The dolmen is at once monument and mystery, a testament to human ingenuity, community effort, and ritual imagination, while simultaneously defying full understanding. Like Sacsayhuaman, Vilcabamba, or the stone circles of Cempoala, it straddles the tangible and intangible, the observable and the enigmatic, inviting reflection rather than offering certainty. The endurance of the dolmen provokes reflection on human ambition and the persistence of meaning. Each orthostat, each capstone, Each spatial alignment is evidence of careful planning and intention, yet the cultural, spiritual, and social context that gave rise to these decisions is largely obscured. How did the builders perceive their place in the world, their connection to ancestors, landscape, and cosmos? How did the dolmen shape social cohesion, ritual behavior, and identity? And what can modern observers learn about prehistoric cognition, social organization, and belief systems by studying these silent, enduring stones? Taverskoye Dolmen, in its quiet resilience, embodies a paradox. The simplest architectural form, 4 stones, a cap, a chamber, can contain profound mystery. Its modest scale compared to Sacsayhuaman or Vilcabamba does not diminish its significance. Rather, it underscores that human ingenuity and spiritual ambition manifest across all sizes and environments. From the windswept Russian plains to the high Andes to the tropical Mesoamerican lowlands, megalithic construction shares common threads: careful observation, communal effort, alignment with nature and cosmos, and a desire to mark existence in a form that endures beyond a single lifetime. Standing beside the dolmen today, amid forest and field, one senses the duality that defines so many ancient structures: human labor made tangible, yet meaning elusive; skill manifest, yet knowledge partially lost. The Taverskoye Dolmen invites questions that remain unanswered. What rituals were performed here? What knowledge guided the placement, orientation, and construction of these stones? How did this site relate to others in the landscape, and what deeper patterns of human intention, observation, and belief does it preserve? And perhaps most compellingly, how much of our understanding of the Neolithic world remains hidden, waiting for careful, patient exploration to reveal the secrets encoded in stone, earth, and the silent memory of landscape? From the prehistoric stones of Taverskoye Dolmen, which have withstood millennia of wind, frost, and human curiosity, our journey moves southwest across the diverse landscapes of the Caucasus to the rugged, mist-shrouded hills of western Georgia. There, perched on a remote plateau in the Racha region, lies the Shaori Fortress, an ancient stronghold that seems to emerge from the very rock of the mountains themselves. Unlike the relatively modest, chambered dolmens of the Russian plains, Shaori is a sprawling complex of stone walls, terraces, and towers, commanding both the landscape and the imagination. Its massive stones, fitted with enduring precision, suggest a civilization capable of engineering feats that remain, in many respects, mysterious even to modern researchers. From the approach, Shaori Fortress is breathtaking. Massive walls zigzag across steep slopes, forming a defensive perimeter that follows the natural contours of the terrain. Towers punctuate the walls at strategic intervals, while terraces cascade down the mountainside, merging architecture seamlessly with the rugged topography. The fortress dominates the surrounding valleys, its stonework blending with the grays and ochres of the rocky landscape. How did the builders transport such immense stones up precipitous slopes in an era without wheeled vehicles or mechanized tools? Were these walls purely defensive, or did they also carry symbolic, ceremonial, or territorial significance that is now lost to time? The stones themselves are remarkable for their size and fitting. Large polygonal blocks are joined with precision so that no mortar appears necessary, a technique reminiscent of Inca and other megalithic constructions around the world. The walls have endured centuries of weathering, seismic activity, and human interference, yet they remain largely intact. What methods enabled the ancients to shape and interlock these stones with such skill? Did they employ advanced understanding of geometry and weight distribution, or were their techniques now forgotten, passed down orally through generations? And if so, why does such knowledge appear in scattered locations across the globe, often with no clear connection between cultures? The layout of Shaori Fortress, hints at careful planning and complex social organization. The walls form multiple enclosures, suggesting spaces for defense, habitation, and perhaps ritual activity. Terraces carved into the mountain might have supported agricultural plots, water management systems, or spaces for public assembly. Was the fortress a purely defensive structure, or did it function as a ceremonial center as well, integrating the mundane and the sacred? And how did the inhabitants coordinate labor, resources, and logistics to construct such a monumental complex in an environment both remote and challenging? Orientation and landscape integration provide further intrigue. The fortress is positioned to dominate surrounding valleys and passes, creating both a visual and strategic presence. Certain walls align with distant peaks, river courses, or subtle sun and shadow patterns, suggesting a possible astronomical or ritual dimension. Could Shaori have been more than a military installation? Might it have served as a site for celestial observation, seasonal ritual, or territorial symbolism? And if so, how was this knowledge developed, preserved, and transmitted in a society that left no written record? Shaori's towers and walls are particularly enigmatic. Some blocks are of such extraordinary size that modern engineering estimates struggle to account for their movement and placement. Could the builders have used sledges, levers, and human coordination alone? Or were there now lost techniques that enabled the movement of megaliths across steep terrain? If such methods existed, why do we find similar feats in seemingly unrelated cultures, from the Andes to the Caucasus to the Mediterranean? Is there a universal human capacity for monumental construction that manifests independently? Or could knowledge have diffused across regions in ways that challenge current historical models? The fortress's internal structure also invites speculation. Narrow passages, terraces, and platforms suggest controlled movement within the complex, possibly designed for defensive, ceremonial, or social purposes. Certain terraces might have accommodated gatherings, while internal enclosures could have housed leaders, elites, or sacred objects. How did the organization of space reflect social hierarchy, ritual practice, or strategic planning? And what insights into the worldview, cosmology, or political systems of Shaori's builders are encoded in these arrangements, awaiting interpretation by attentive observers? Shaori's location emphasizes the interplay between human construction and natural environment. Situated on steep slopes and surrounded by cliffs, rivers, and forests, the fortress demonstrates an acute understanding of terrain, hydrology, and defensive advantage. Terraces and walls interact with natural features, sometimes enhancing the site's visibility from afar, other times concealing its presence from potential intruders. How did the builders conceptualize their relationship with the land, balancing practicality with symbolism, defense with ritual? And how did the fortress integrate with broader patterns of settlement, trade, and communication across the Caucasus region? The fortress also raises questions about its cultural and temporal context. Scholars suggest construction dates may span from the early Iron Age into the medieval period, reflecting a long-lived tradition of monumental architecture in the region. Yet artifacts are sparse, and few written records survive, leaving the site largely silent about its original inhabitants, political affiliations, and ritual practices. Was Shaori a local stronghold, part of a broader confederation, or a ceremonial hub? And how much of the fortress's function has been obscured or transformed by time, erosion, and later human activity? The strategic and symbolic dimensions of Shaori likely intersected with social cohesion and spiritual practice. The placement of terraces, walls, and towers suggests a sophisticated understanding of human perception, views from certain angles, approaches along defined paths, and spatial hierarchies that emphasized power, ritual significance, or control over territory. Did these architectural choices encode cosmological principles, social order, or spiritual beliefs, as is evident in other ancient complexes like Vilcabamba or Sacsayhuaman? And if so, how much of this knowledge can be reconstructed today from stones alone, without the oral and ceremonial traditions that originally accompanied them? Walking along the fortress walls today, one cannot ignore the aura of endurance and mystery. Each massive stone, each interlocking wall, each terrace tells a story of human ambition, ingenuity, and labor, yet the narrative remains incomplete. Like Taverskoye Dolmen or other megalithic sites we have explored, Shaori embodies both mastery and enigma, a testament to human capability and an enduring invitation to inquiry. What motivated its construction? And what secrets do the stones still hold about the people who built them, the rituals they performed, or the knowledge they possessed? The fortress, in its monumental scale and precise execution, forces a reconsideration of what ancient societies were capable of. Its location, form, and integration with the landscape suggest a culture that understood engineering, strategy, ritual, and social organization in ways that continue to challenge modern assumptions. How did communities coordinate resources and knowledge to execute such projects in remote terrain? How did they perceive and manipulate both the natural and spiritual world? And what traces of that understanding remain, encoded silently in stone, waiting for interpretation by those willing to observe carefully and think deeply? Shaori Fortress, in its silent grandeur, exemplifies the intersection of human determination, environmental adaptation, and symbolic ambition. Its walls endure as a record of ingenuity, yet they also protect mysteries, the precise techniques of construction, the intentions behind its layout, and the social and spiritual systems that gave rise to such a remarkable complex. Like other structures we have visited, from the megalithic dolmens of Russia to the terraces of Vilcabamba to the monumental stones of Sacsayhuaman, Shaori challenges the observer to recognize both the limits of contemporary understanding and the extraordinary capacity of human societies to shape, command, and interpret their world. As we stand upon the terraces and look across the rugged Caucasus landscape, we are left with the same enduring question that accompanies all great ancient monuments. How much of human knowledge, belief, and skill is encoded in stone, and how much remains hidden, waiting for the patient observer to uncover its truths? Shaori Fortress, like Taverskoye Dolmen before it, embodies the paradox of ancient structures. They are both comprehensible and mysterious, monumental and intimate, practical and symbolic. And it is precisely in this tension, between what we can measure and what we can only imagine, that their power and their mystery endures.